Isn't this a sports show?
Kiss my bum. Just go ahead. Please.
That did not sound good. Don't do that. It sounded tinny. Okay, you're done now.
Smooch it.
Almost entirely.
This is a good radio show. It's certainly a radio show.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I say it pretty frequently. I don't have a great memory, right? My best memories are Slim Chicken Space.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
Beards, how do you pee?
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Got a few interesting things to talk about from this weekend that was in the Kansas City sports scene. We've also got the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, either just around the corner or just having begun. And maybe most predictably, there is a Nintendo Switch game that came out in 2017 that I played for the first time this weekend that I want to talk about, gosh darn it. We won't start the show there, of course. I shouldn't say of course. We won't start the show there, surprisingly enough, because we got a couple pieces of relative news.
My PlayStation 5 games.
Rudy's got his PlayStation's actually hooked up. He's playing games He's playing games on it. He hasn't played Pokemon Snap yet. That review will come eventually. We're gonna have a pretty bonkers shot clock review segment whenever we finally do that in 6 months, because it's my favorite bit that I forget about all the time.
Yeah.
It's always Beards will bring it up every once in a while, and I go, no, good call, Beards. We'll do that tomorrow.
He's the one who reminds me generally of it more than anybody.
Yeah, and then tomorrow comes around, and then I want to talk about the Chiefs secondary, and then Beards asks again in 2 months. That's kind of the cycle of that. But Beards is here on the other side of the glass. I'm Joshua Brisco. Rudy Salazar is the other voice you've heard here in studio. So a couple of things currently happening. One little bit of news that literally just broke from Jeff Goodman on Twitter said Kansas is expected to land Arizona State transfer Remy Martin. A source told Stadium Martin is a big-time addition for the Jayhawks, gives them a scoring point with speed, which is much needed. That's all obviously true. Also, only the second Remy I can think of off the top of my head, behind the rat from Ratatouille. Or is he the chef from Ratatouille? He's the rat.
I'd say I haven't seen that movie I don't know if I've ever actually seen.
You didn't watch Ratatouille yesterday I did?
I've seen parts of the movie for sure. I don't know if I've ever seen the full movie from start to finish.
Really? It's excellent.
Yeah.
It's a top 5 Disney Pixar movie for me, I think. It's really good, and I bet it holds up pretty well. So the Jayhawks will not have a mouse playing point guard, but Remy Martin, Arizona State transfer. I guess, that would be pretty...
You don't know.
That would be pretty big news. And also other news from a little bit earlier, but not a whole lot earlier today. Danny Duffy is on his way to the 10-day IL. It will be retroactive to May 14th. So a really tough piece of news there for, I would argue, I think, the member of the Kansas City Royals having the best 2021 season to this point. I think it's probably Danny Duffy. You can make an argument for Salvi. Carlos Santana has been very good, but it's hard to say that anyone on this team has been having a better year than Danny Duffy right now with a sub-2 ERA, something that he simply has not done with this many innings pitched, even just to this point, I believe. Back in 2013, he was below 2, but it was on fewer innings than he had already racked up in 2021. His velocity was good. His command has been brilliant. He's been fantastic and a really bright spot in a rotation that has, especially obviously recently, had some pretty significant struggles. Danny Duffy was the consistent, excellent thing. He's now out for at least a couple of starts, it'll look like here. Forearm tightness is the official, left forearm flexor strain is the official phrasing there of the forearm tightness. This is just me being literally 100% paranoid about all baseball arms, but any soreness, strain, irritation, inflammation, anything is scary for a pitcher just 100% of the time.
Yeah, and this one, the way they worded it, I don't know what a percentage is, but the majority of the time when you see this, when a pitcher goes on the IL for this, Tommy John is generally it's inevitable usually.
So inevitable is a very, very dark way of sort of floating.
Not always.
Floating in that direction.
You could get lucky. Could be dead arm, little, which weirdly is like it's weird. A dead arm is actually a good thing in baseball compared to like anything else. But hopefully it's just a dead arm. But generally, never a good sign.
It's funny that the things that sports will make us experts in by accident. I know more. I'd like to. You know what? I'm going to say this incredibly arrogantly and with nothing to back it up. I feel like
never.
You can at least let me say it first, but I mean, it's a totally fair point by you. I feel like I know more about a Haglund's deformity than some doctors.
I'd say I'm an expert in it, honestly.
Not a podiatrist. I'm not a podiatrist, right? If you're specifically a foot doctor, you probably know more about a Haglund's deformity than I do. But if you're just sort of a normal doctor, you just are a doctor.
You're just aware of it.
One of those normal doctors. I feel like because of Eric Berry and the thing that kept him out for his last season with the Chiefs, I feel like I could diagram and locate a Haglund's deformity 100% with 100% certainty. I'm guessing some doctors out there probably can't. Hopefully it's not many of them, but maybe some.
I would say I have probably more, field experience than most doctors do.
That's probably, sure. Yeah, I think I'm smarter than most doctors. And
I wouldn't say I'm smarter.
Okay,
I just think I have more experience with a Haglund deformity than others.
It's plural, actually.
Haglund, sorry.
Yeah, so you actually don't. I understand the confusion, though. I do understand the confusion. So, I would be very bummed if this ends up being a long-term and very bad surgical solution here for Danny Duffy. But that's terrible news. We'll see what the specifics of that are. But again, like Rudy was sort of saying, it basically anything forearm, elbow, shoulder always feels like it's code for something worse than it sounds like originally.
Especially the flexor strain.
Yeah.
Like that's a flexor strain like in your elbow again. It seems like more times than not, at least in today's baseball, it leads to. Maybe it ultimately isn't Tommy John, but it is a pretty serious elbow injury of some sort. But that's typically where this goes.
Yeah. So we'll see, and maybe if it's somehow more contained to the forum or whatever, you can be optimistic. Certainly nothing official on that front. The official news for Danny Duffy is the forearm and 10 days, retroactive a few days. We'll see where it goes. There's a couple of things from Chiefs rookie camp that we'll get to in a little bit. Also, the Royals to this point had a pretty interesting weekend. Obviously, they ended their horrendous losing streak and then promptly started losing again and ended up getting out of that White Sox series with a split, which at this point, I mean, you would take it going in probably most of the time, certainly in a situation like this. But they won in 7 innings and then lost in 7 innings and then won on Saturday and then yesterday had a game end in pretty widely infuriating fashion, even for a mild-mannered guy like Mike Matheny. So it's been a bit of a stressful 36 hours or so for the Kansas City Royals. Not a great run.
Real fast, John, not to get too off track, but John Rothstein just said Remy Martin has told him he is committed to Kansas. So not that Goodman was lying, but now it's John Rothstein is saying that Remy Martin has told him himself that he is going to Kansas. I clicked on the story and then there just a comment was just there, right? Like there's just I can just physically see one comment to the story by an account called NCAA Buzzer Beaters and Game Winners. Simply saying kind of a downgrade for Remy, but I could be wrong.
I'm sorry, I was reading about Danny Duffy while you were talking there.
You're fine.
I realized by the inflection of your voice that it was probably a joke.
He said that.
Beards, I'm reading about Danny Duffy really quick. Can you laugh at Rudy's joke for me?
I mean, it's not really joke.
Well,
It's
he
just,
hasn't let him deliver it again.
just some commenter said, that going from Arizona State to Kansas is a downgrade.
Oh.
Ha!
It depends on what you're into, I
Could
guess.
be wrong. Yeah, that's true.
Also,
Great party school.
mascot wise, extremely like same category of like
And
very
the,
specific fictionalized sort of thing.
The
Love
the
that.
KU Arizona State connections just continue, right? Like
Yeah.
we had Carlton Bragg went from KU to Arizona
It's
State.
just a long trade.
And then there was the other guy who transferred from Arizona State, whose name I can't remember now, to KU because he was only there for 1 year. But I forget what his name was. He was, if I remember
Damn
right,
it.
thought to be pretty good. And
I hate.
he didn't do much. The
I
problem
hate
is,
it when this happens because I
Yeah.
should just know.
because like the
Sam Cunliffe?
yes, Cunliffe.
Jeez Louise.
Yes,
I was not
Sam
nearly as close to that as I thought.
Cunliffe.
Carlton Bragg, however, we have
Never
a Carlton
forget.
Bragg segment every 6 months.
Never
I'm just like,
forget.
hey, whatever happened to Carlton Bragg?
Sam Cunliffe ended up at Evansville.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we've done the show before, but Carlton Bragg ended up at New Mexico State, right?
Yeah, I think so. Did he ever play there though? I feel like there's a chance he didn't actually even play, but that he did like transfer there.
No, he was lighting it up at New Mexico.
Are we
Maybe
sure?
not State. Yeah, absolutely.
Did he play though?
Yes.
That's what I'm curious.
Yes,
about.
yes.
Oh, it was
yes.
Arizona State where he never
never
played.
played at
Yes,
Arizona
yes,
State.
Yes, yes.
He was putting up. Let's see. Can I get a little points per game here? Basketball reference.
Ooh.
He double digits points per game in New Mexico.
On March 9th, 2019, he recorded 22 points and 20 rebounds.
Not New Mexico State though. New Mexico,
No.
the Lobos.
No. And a loss to Wyoming though.
We do this every 6 months. There's just a
Yeah.
random, inexplicable Carlton Bragg check-in. There was something. What I was reading about was a brief blurb on MLBTradeRumors.com talking about the phrase forearm flexor strain. So whenever the phrase forearm flexor strain is used regarding a pitcher, it's unsettling. So the Royals can only hope that this doesn't make for a long absence, or even Tommy John surgery for Duffy, who's been excellent this season. So I was just sort of seeing if there had been any other recent speculation within the last couple minutes. Here we go. This is extremely helpful, and this is much more what I was looking forward to. In fact, it's written by who will be our guest here in about 2 hours. Max Rieper of Royals Review on Royals Review wrote about this a little bit, royalsreview.com. So the flexor mass is a collection of muscles and tendons that all come together in the forearm near the elbow and is protective of the ulnar collateral ligament, UCL, which is the ligament that can be replaced in Tommy John surgery. A 2014 study showed that the median time missed by a player with a flexor strain was 42 days. So there's kind of your mixed bag right there. Is, right now he's on the 10-day IL. Maybe if it ends up being less serious than it seemed at the jump, or with how they had framed it, maybe it ends up being a shorter stint. If it is a pure flexor strain issue, maybe it's a month or two. If it ends up having a UCL issue, then it's probably Tommy John, and would obviously be tremendously unfortunate. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially for him in a contract year playing
I
as
didn't
well
even
that he
thought about
has.
that.
Yeah, like this is because even if it's not Tommy John, right? Like that again, anything involving the UCL is not good for contract negotiations. Like teams are going to be a little wary, especially for a pitcher who has had Tommy John surgery, and it has been 9 years since then. But like Lesky mentioned this earlier about how that a lot of times when a guy needs a second surgery, it's around kind of that it can be in that 8 to 10 year mark.
So, here's just a thing to think about. This is me talking so far out of my depth and straight out of my butt that it's something I'm giving you that precursor, even as you understand how this show usually goes, which is me doing that but just not admitting it. So Duffy had Tommy John in 2012.
Yes,
it's been a long time.
Yeah,
but he's had Tommy John already. I'm reading now a story originally published from 2009 on the Diamondbacks SB Nation site, but it's about Tommy John surgery.
I think I know where you're going with this now.
Well,
because I think I'm remembering stuff.
Well, so here's I'm just gonna read you this paragraph because my first thought was I was having the thought of what it says you can replace the UCL. Aren't they probably replacing that UCL with like a donor UCL or like a cadaver.
Oh no, it's from.
Well, here's the
what is
thing,
it
Rudy.
from?
I was
I know
kind of right.
this.
No, I was kind of right. And we're gonna here's how does this surgery help from azsnakepit.com. In the operation, the ligament above the elbow is replaced with a tendon. Previously, it used to be taken from a cadaver, but nowadays the preferred donor tendon is from the patient's own forearm, typically the one attached to the palmaris longus muscle. This tendon serves no real purpose, and in fact, about 15% of the population doesn't have it.
Ooh.
Alternative sources include the plantaris tendon in the ankle or a small part of the hamstring tendon taken from the back rather than plant foot.
I knew about the hamstring, not the ankle.
To be honest, just something I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to, because it's kind of bonkers.
Yeah, I don't like. I'm by no
Flex your
means,
muscles. Flex your palmaris
I'm
longus muscle
not
here,
an expert in
Rudy.
this at all. I'm just like Jeff
Flex your
Passan's,
palmaris longus.
Jeff Passan's book, The Arm, is like it's an amazing book. It really is like fascinating, and obviously it just goes completely into obviously Jeff Passan's baseball writer. He wrote a book called The Arm. Goes into the pitcher's arm.
Yeah,
Crazy, right?
yeah.
Funny thing
I never
is,
read it, so I didn't honestly know what
he talked
the
about.
specifics
That
were in it.
book came out, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and there is a mention of Shohei Ohtani in it back when
Oh.
he was just a high school kid, essentially in Japan, because he had some game in the what is that? Their big
Book was
tournament called.
published in 2016. I have no
Starts
idea. I can't
with
help you.
an S.
Yeah, the Shohei
I-
Ohtani tournament is what
But
it's called.
anyways, their big tournament, right? He threw like 250 pitches in a game, something crazy like that, something
What?
absurd. That's very common, like in Japan, to throw like 150 to 200 pitches. Like
Jeez,
it's super
okay.
common. It's wild. Yeah.
I
So
just
he was mentioned.
I just scrolled up from the Twitch chat that I hadn't had a chance to look at yet today because we've been moving a lot here. And Human Torch said, "Let Josh know that Tokyo Drift is the third movie of the Fast and Furious series." I can't remember. I think maybe Human Torch. Somebody in the Twitch chat was going to see it in theaters, and they left us on Thursday or Friday, I think.
Koshin, that's what it is. It's the summer Koshin term.
Yeah, it starts with an S.
Yeah. Well, summer does.
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
It's the summer Koshin tournament.
Anyway, also multiple people have asked if I trim my face mullet. Not this weekend. I trimmed my beard on, I don't know, late last week. Pre-Friday show though. Thanks for noticing. As long as you're saying that as a positive thing. So anyway, that whole little Tommy John rabbit trail there is, I wondered if there's just a practical, I'm sure this has been discussed before and I'm out of my depth again, but I wonder if there are practical issues with a second Tommy John surgery. And obviously it would be disastrous for Duffy for a variety of reasons, even beyond that. And we do not know, again, if you're just turning in your car radio, we do not know that that's where Duffy is headed. It's just something that you can't help but be worried about as the worst case scenario that would not be totally stunning at this point.
By the way,
as Duffy's on the 10-day IL right now.
I got Shohei and Daisuke Matsuzaka mixed up. Daisuke threw a 17-inning no-hitter through 250 pitches in this high school tournament once.
God, I was so excited about Daisuke.
Yeah, same. I remember his first start was against the Royals.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I was
Pena
excited
Ju-
about him. I was very aware of him.
Tony Pena Jr. I think I know he had a triple off of him, but he might have had 2. 'Cause that was when we all thought Tony Pena Jr. was gonna be great because like he had like 3 triples in his first like 2 big league games. It was like, oh boy, we got something. And then he never hit a baseball again, weirdly enough.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
How old do you think Daisuke is right now? I think this is going to be, if you get it right, then fine. But I would have gotten this pretty wrong.
Yeah, so my initial thought I probably would have just said like over 40 is my initial thought, but I'm but just based off because I have an article here where I know I'm gonna say like 35.
No, he's 40.
Oh, he is 40. Okay.
He's almost 41. It just doesn't feel like that was all that long ago.
Yeah,
but it was.
43 to 44 would probably be my initial guess, and I was like, well, no, it's probably lower.
His debut with the Red Sox was in 2007.
Yeah.
I would have bet. I would have bet my last shiny quarter in my backpack that was that his debut was not a decade ago, and it's been almost 15 years ago. We're old.
Yeah.
You find a kid, go ask about Dice K on TikTok.
Nobody knows.
No one's going to know
Nobody
about
knows
Dice K on
Dice K
TikTok. I'm just, all of a sudden, I'm starting to look, I look at Mike Francesa, and I'm looking into a mirror now. You just get angry about the kids not knowing players from whenever you were a kid. Weirdly, Dice K Matsuzaka is the guy that's going to do that for me.
I listened to ESPN Daily Day, and this made me think of it because they had Michael Wilbon on since he was inducted in the NBA Hall of Fame, and oh boy, has he turned Mike Francesa. He went on a huge rant on how young journalists these days don't even watch the game, and they don't know how to watch their game. And he's like, if I have to see another exit velocity on my bleep, and like there was a bleep screen, like I'm gonna lose my mind. He's like, he hates numbers basically.
PER. Why don't you tell me how many rings per season they're winning? I'm Mike Wilbon. All my best impressions just end with me saying who I'm doing an impression
Who you
of.
are, yeah.
That's been established.
Yeah.
That was another revelation this weekend. Is I found another character voice in my soul. I don't know if I can even access it right. Really, it comes to me whenever it's ready to speak.
Yeah.
And it's basically the SpongeBob character that chocolate grandma, you know, chocolate. That, you know what I'm talking about? I said chocolate grandma, and Rudy's face got very confused.
I'm trying to remember chocolate.
I remember when they invented chocolate. I always hated it, but I can't get. It's basically Marge Simpson / chocolate grandma /
Oh, okay, yeah.
all of those characters.
I remember chocolate.
I don't have
grandma
access to it right now. It's not. But what I figured out is that one's basically also like 1 degree removed from Bill Clinton, which is 1 degree removed from Steve Spagnuolo, which is weirdly like 2 degrees removed from Pennywise the Clown. They're just all in the same. They're in the same neighborhood, you know.
They're there.
It just sort of depends on how like flimmy I am at that moment. And right now, the answer is not flimmy enough, which is probably good for radio and is bad for me doing an impression of a character that I don't think Beards or Rudy knew what I was talking about when I said
No,
it.
I do now. Chocolate grandma. I forgot about
Chocolate grandma is a very upsetting way of saying it, though. It would be fair to point out.
I recognize it though now. I googled it. It popped right up.
Yours on Twitch points out that Joaquin Soria had 2 Tommy John surgeries.
Yes.
I was sure that it had happened. That's a specific. I hadn't thought about Soria as being an example of that around here, though.
It's definitely happened for it. It's not, like I said, it's not unheard of. It's just it's very unlikely. Like it's hard coming. Like people, I think we kind of forget because like Tommy John's not the same as tearing your ACL is still a serious injury. Like you are going into your knee.
Yeah.
Tommy John is far, far, far more serious. Like it is. Like we forget even
for a pitcher.
For like pitchers still struggle coming back from 1. Like it is a challenge to come back from 1. Coming back from 2 is, if it is, which we don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
It is incredibly difficult. Doesn't mean it does not. By no means, Danny Duffy, I am confident, will throw another pitch in the big leagues. Like that will happen. I'm very confident of that. It's just hard to all of a sudden get back into being at your best. It's hard to do it for 1. It is happened very few times. A second time.
Yeah, and for me, it's a legit just sort of curiosity of, I wonder what practical effects it would have on the recovery process, and if it gets more difficult by an order of magnitude, or is it more difficult by 5%, or is it exactly the same? And they're just pulling tendons from different places. I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about. As hopefully we don't ever actually have to land that plane fully and go through that process. Hopefully it ends up not headed there for Danny Duffy. But right now, it's something that's on the table, and it just wouldn't be sports talk radio if we didn't spend 20 minutes talking about the absolute worst case scenario of literally any issue ever.
Of course.
If we're talking, you want best case scenario, just
there are other shows for that.
Listen to there's not. There's not. That's not true. Just
the Border Patrol is all about the happy.
I don't feel like that's necessarily true.
All about the happy.
I'm just saying.
Except when Steven loses his mind. But that only happens once an hour.
I'm just saying that I feel like the sports media complex is built atop people talking about the most extreme possible outcomes. And I try not to do that just for fun, but we did it by accident here.
I always stay away from it. If I've said it once, I've said it twice. The Chiefs will either win the Super Bowl this year or Patrick Mahomes will never play football again.
If I've said it once, I've said it twice. That's not... Let's take a break. Whenever we come back, we'll talk about what the Royals actually did on the field this weekend.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I think the Big 12 made the right decision, but for him to be like in
They're
this...
getting paid in education out there, gosh darn it.
They're just out there trying to earn an education. Frankly, they might be overpaid. Why am I Bill Clinton?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
get to some Chiefs stuff in a little while, by the way. Matt Derrick of the KC Sports Network will join us at 8 here in about half an hour or so. We'll talk to him about rookie minicamps and hearing from Andy Reid and some of the rookies. And, if he thinks that, what's the name of the quarterback they signed, Rudy?
Shane Buechele.
Thank you. I was super confident in Shane and not at all confident in his last name.
Buechele.
Will he overtake, not Patrick Mahomes, but, Chad Henne? I don't think Matt Moore is on the roster at the moment. Are they going to carry a third quarterback?
Watch out for Anthony Gordon. He's the other guy.
I have not
Washington State.
I have not made room. Was that immediately after the draft also? Or is that more recently? Or was that earlier?
When did they sign Anthony Gordon?
Because, boy, it sounds just so vaguely plausible. But they had Shane, whatever his name was, talk during after one of the rookie minicamp days.
Not too long ago, January 12th.
So it was so long ago.
Yeah, he was
that
signed,
it was pre-draft.
He was one of the right after the it happens always after the regular season. And
Reserve
the
futures
sign all
deals.
Those, your reserve
yeah,
futures.
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about missing that one, if I'm being honest. I know. I don't have enough freaking pride.
Gonna have to be
in my craft because I've already forgotten the names of those quarterbacks.
But all of a sudden, he's the Chiefs starting quarterback. You're gonna want to know that name.
Egg on my face. You're right, dude,
right.
for sure. I want to talk about the Royals from this weekend a little bit here because they're off today, which is still just good news for everybody. They beat the White Sox in that first 7-inning doubleheader. It didn't quite turn into the hot streak that would have gotten them back into the divisional race. Would have been nice. Sweep that series, all of a sudden, it's not quite the cavern that it was previously, and they would be back at 500. They're not, though. They're 18-22. That feels about right. But some of the specifics of yesterday's game left everybody with a bad taste in their mouth. I got to be honest, it didn't ruin my weekend, but based on just my Twitter, whenever I tweeted about how this game wrapped up, some people definitely had a significantly worse day because of it. There are a couple of things that we can talk about here. On the plus side, Brady Singer looked pretty good. He gave up a bunch of hits and a couple of runs, but he was out there for 6, came out for the 7th, and I talked about this because I was a guest on Baseball Tonight on Sunday. Blake Schneider's holding it down. God bless him. Look, just taking his opportunity on a Sunday morning, just running with it. And also getting the big dogs to come in and help him out. By big dogs, I mean me. Blake was doing a good job. But we talked a little bit about Singer, and I was saying, look, you're going to be hard-pressed to find many people in media that give less a bleep about pitcher win-loss stats than I do, because they're not – this would make Wilbon furious. They're not indicative of how a pitcher is pitching. They're indicative of how the team is playing, which includes the pitcher, but it's nowhere near our richest way of evaluating pitching performances. But I said this to Blake on Sunday. Brady Singer just going through the season right now with a 1-3 sitting by his name. It doesn't look very good, and it hasn't all been his fault. And he really gave an outing that they should have been able to capitalize on yesterday, and they just didn't. But there's just something sort of nasty about a 1-3 record that makes it. They just can't be fun to look up at the jumbotron and see next to your name. So I thought that would have been nice, and sending him out there for the top of the 7th inning, or I guess for the bottom of the 7th inning, the Royals had gotten a lead at that point, and you say, you know what, let's go see what you can do. And he ended up getting one out and gave up a hit, and then Greg Holland came in, and he was really pretty good for 2 innings. It was all very stressful. Pretty good is strong because he loaded up the bases at some point, but then he ended up fielding a ball and flinging it to first like Patrick Mahomes' sidearm, and he got out of it clean. I rescind saying he was pretty good. I will say he was pretty fun and didn't give up any runs. That's what I meant when I said he was pretty good.
It's pretty good. It
was fine. It ended up being fine. And then Wade Davis came out for the 9th. And Beards, if you want to take off your headphones for any of this, I understand. It's going to be hard for you to hear. I could not find one single human being on Twitter.com that tweeted anything about Wade Davis anything that did not include the phrase Wade Davis and also the word washed. Mm-hmm. The word washed was washing over my timeline as Wade Davis was letting this game get away from him. It was not pleasant. And look, the Royals at this point, especially as of yesterday, have a bit of a cobbled together bullpen. Their pitching staff as a whole, with the Danny Duffy news, is getting continuously thinner. This could end up resulting in some fun call-ups. We'll see, I guess.
Jackson Kowar could be coming soon.
I think he's the logical next step. I think it would make sense if Duffy's not going to be back from it. You need a starter out of that group.
You're not bringing, obviously, Lynch back up because
This is the thing.
I feel like he has to do something at AAA before you do that, right? Like, because
He got to stop pitching, stop tipping pitches.
Yeah, like you just got to see, and also for him, like he just needs to see some success.
Yeah.
Like he just needs to see himself just get a guy out.
So unfortunately the Daniel Lynch limited series run, one night only kind of thing. It wasn't only one, but felt like it. That's made me a little more hesitant, I guess, about Jackson Kowar, even though it's probably unfair to Jackson Kowar. It makes me a little bit more afraid to be like, why can't we get Chris Bubich in the rotation immediately, right, as quick as possible? Is he pitching?
Bubich is starting tomorrow.
Tomorrow? That's what I thought.
Yes.
So I'll be glad to see him in that role again and see how it goes. But I'm just sort of walking on. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells a little bit right now because it just went very poorly for Daniel Lynch, and everything is thin the whole way through. I bring that up now talking about the bullpen because yesterday the bullpen availability was very, very limited. Matheny had a couple other options, and they probably would not have been worse. But he went with Wade Davis in that spot. Okay. Would you rather have had Davis come out sooner and then hold Holland for the end? To Matheny's credit, generally speaking, he's using guys based off of immediate situation rather than inning number, and I tend to like that. I think that's generally pretty forward thinking. Play to your situations, maximize your guys. But he came out and wasn't very good, obviously. And then at the very end of the game, like the last play, because it ended up being a walk-off, last play of the game, there's a wild pitch. Cam Gallagher's back there, who is a better defensive catcher than Salvador Perez, by the way, in terms of pass balls and stuff, which I know because David Lesky was tweeting about it before this game, or maybe it was Saturday he tweeted about it. And I was actually thinking about that in the ninth inning. You know what? At least you got Gallagher back there, and Jose Abreu comes home. Gallagher comes back with the ball, dives for the plate, and I'm going to try to say this as judiciously as possible here. Abreu slides in around the plate. His left arm goes up as he's going to reach over to touch the plate with his hand. His feet do not touch the plate at all. His hip does not touch the plate. Gallagher comes in with the tag, and by the way they're moving, Gallagher's best hope is to brush the hip / lower torso of Abreu sliding in. What it effectively does is shoot the gap between his hip and torso and his left arm. He's called safe on the field at the time. They go to replay. They go through the replays, come out, call him safe, game ends. We'll hear from Mike Matheny in just a second, because this is probably the most animated opening statement I think I've ever heard from Mike Matheny as Royals manager. But I'm just going to be very honest, and then everyone can yell at me, because this happened on Twitter, and I think it's fine. I do not feel like I can say definitively that Cam Gallagher absolutely tagged him on that play, even with the benefit of frame-by-frame slow-mo. If you said, bet your life right now, was there a molecular amount of contact between Cam Gallagher's glove and Jose Abreu's jersey, I would say I think so, but I would not say that he touched Abreu's actual body. That doesn't need to. If you hit the jersey, you're good, right? But we're talking about paper-thin margins here, and it also was not. I mean, it was a poor defensive play from Cam Gallagher, and I didn't think his tag was especially worth fighting over because he ended up stretching out the only place that there wasn't a little bit of Jose Abreu. And it's a tough call to make there, because if you go for the foot but you miss and all of a sudden no, he's tagged in, your margin of error is not that high. If you go for the torso but he slides under the tag, well then now you failed. If you go low but he goes over you, now you failed. If you go for his chest, well, you've got to go too far, and at that point he's slid in already. It's a tough play. But there would have been several different points of articulation over the course of that play where it would not have ended this way. So, does that, Rudy, you nodded at one point. Do I sound reasonable, or did either of you, Beards, I would fall out of my chair right now if you said you were watching this game yesterday?
Nope.
Okay.
I wasn't watching the game. I've seen the play.
I would be moderately surprised if Beards had watched the play from all angles in its entirety.
Haven't done that either.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the Twitter clips.
Sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes I feel like I'm accidentally leaving Beards out of a conversation that I'm either having with Rudy or myself.
You're really not.
But in this one, I just feel like you let me know whenever you've got something to add.
I mean, I have
probably.
replay thoughts, but nothing that pertaining to this.
Well, maybe on the other side of Matheny, maybe you'll have more thoughts then. It's also kind of fun. I think it's one place where we more or less disagree, which doesn't happen all that often.
This was my sports break weekend, so I was like, you know what?
Fair
not
enough.
doing it.
But you've seen
But
the
I've seen it,
replay
yes.
from all the angles and everything.
Yes.
Do I sound like a kook? Like a kook? Do I sound like a crazy person?
When I first watched it, and this was obviously going
Yours
in,
on Twitch said Bobby Witt to the bullpen. Sorry, go ahead, Rudy.
I mean,
He would help.
Bobby Witt actually, dude, brought heat.
Yeah.
His son wouldn't hurt either. Yeah, he said Bobby Witt, not Bobby Witt Jr.
Sorry, you can go. You can continue.
It was a bad joke.
It was a good comment though.
Yeah, it was. I enjoy it. I mean, hey, if somebody in the Royals organization is next Shohei, I think it's probably Bobby Witt Jr.
Absolutely.
That's who I bet my money on. Yeah, so this was, I saw it knowing that the result was out, right? And that Royals fans, or that the result was safe and that Royals fans thought he was out.
Right.
I watched it multiple times. I think he was out. I'm not sure that he was out. I couldn't really tell. It seemed like it, just kind of putting some, maybe some logic together, right? Just I think, boom, boom, boom. I think he's probably out. I can't say with any certainty, though. I didn't see any angle where I was like, yep, out, boom, clearly, done, out.
We'll take a break before we end up hearing from Matheny here, but to that point, Rudy, here's one other element of this that's going to come into it, and then I'll let you hear from Matheny. Whenever you're talking about hey, what is a catch? That's a judgment call that has caused much frustration because there's room for interpretation. Inbounds, out of bounds, who was the ball off of? Did he get both feet in? Was he tagged out? Who got to first? All of those things across various different sports. Those are all supposed to be very binary. It's a 1 or a 0, right? He's safe or he's out. He's in or he's out. It was off red or blue. I don't feel like there was a extremely binary answer to this, because I think that the most reasonable takeaway from the replay fiasco last night was, I don't know, maybe.
And it should be pointed because part of this is right that the Mike Matheny will hear it. They see camera angles that we do not see in the broadcast.
I've seen a lot of camera angles.
Yes, but I was filling in for Jets Day. Petra, so obviously Petra was talking about this, and I remember this conversation a few years back when we were in spring training back in 2019, and Bill Duplessis. I might be saying his name wrong.
No, that's right.
Okay, cool, nice. I couldn't remember if it was Duplessis actually, or if it was just Duplessis.
I think it's
nice.
Duplessis.
He talked about how they have he has a TV essentially with 30 different camera angles. So they have roughly 30. And he even said not all these go on the TV broadcast. The TV broadcast does not have access to every one of these camera angles. We generally don't see that many. So, like, maybe there is an angle or two where it is clear that he's out. It again, from everything that we saw, I didn't see anything clear. But I guess I think it's important to note, maybe maybe that camera exists. There was that whole issue, was it 2015 or 2016? The sunspots. Do you remember that? Like, they had the issues with with the replay because the sun was too bright, I guess. I don't fully understand. Here's the thing. I still don't fully understand what like the sunspot was, but basically it was described to me as like it got too bright. And I was like, that seems weird. But like there is some stuff around that whole that like we obviously don't know everything. We don't have full access to. But yeah, I think anybody who watched that and was like he was definitively out, like it's clear as day. You're probably a Royals fan. You know what? That's okay.
We'll take a break. Whenever we come back, Rudy will pick a fight with Mike Matheny.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
I wonder if we could like set up an elaborate role play scenario where we would just call in and give your best post game question, and then I would be Ned Yost and try to answer them as well as I could.
With Joshua Brisco.
Talk about Sawyer's performance there in the third.
Don't ask me to talk about question. I'm bleeping Ned Yost.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm gonna get you this Mike Matheny sound, but there's breaking news. Patriots are signing veteran quarterback Brian Hoyer to a 1-year deal, per source, according to Adam Schefter.
Someone break this down. This is a great move because who bet, like, the Patriots need a veteran quarterback to just foster Mac Jones, right? Just to bring him along.
Why couldn't Cam Newton be that guy? Rudy? Why couldn't Cam Newton?
Too tall.
Why couldn't Cam Newton be that guy?
It's too tall.
Different play styles? What's going on there, Rudy? What do you think?
Sneaky athletic.
Yeah? You don't think Mac Jones could pull off that fashion sense?
No.
Hey Rudy,
Definitely not that.
Hey Rudy, why couldn't Mac Jones?
Who starts more games?
Learn from
Hoyer, Newton, or Jones?
I'm
honestly not sure, man.
I think the 1, 2, 3 of that is fun. I think Cam starts the majority of the season. Mac finishes it. Hoyer's there for a bad time.
Hoyer is definitely starting / playing. Like
Shut up, so I can play this Mike
quarter
Matheny
of a
out of
game.
here. Yes, absolutely. He will take a snap.
Like
Regular
in
season
a
snap.
close game.
Mike Matheny was pissed about the thing we talked about last segment after the game yesterday. Listen to Mike Matheny here say a whole bunch of things about instant replay.
Well, there's a lot that happened in that game, and I just have to make a point, the fact that if we're going to use video replay, there needs to be some accountability. I just walked in here and had 2 different camera angles with this guy out, tagged before he ever even touched the plate, and very obvious. So I don't know what they're doing, if they're backing each other up, whatever it is, it's wrong. Game that hard played, that well fought all the way to the end, and they've got the opportunity to take that much time. And, from appearances, looks like they don't want to bring them back out on the field while they're here with this crowd, and it's just wrong. And something needs to be done about it.
Mike, where did you see him make the tag? Was it as he was coming in, or did he go over the plate at first?
He got him. He didn't go over the plate, never did touch it until his hand came through later, and the tag was already placed on his jersey. You can see the jersey move when he tagged him in the body.
Here's the wild thing about this for me. I agree with, everything Mike Matheny said there, except for this situation specifically. I certainly don't agree that it was very obvious. Now, look, maybe if he had another angle where he saw the jersey definitively ripple, that's fine. I saw some people on Twitter saying, look, you can see the jersey ripple. And I thought, if you squint your eyes and zoom in real hard, maybe. But for me, I felt like there were plenty of questions still fairly being asked about that specific play, even as I do think that, there's a problem that umpires are correcting umpires and don't want to show up other umpires and don't want to bring guys back out on the field with the home crowd. I think all those things are actually very valid notes from Mike Matheny. I just didn't see it nearly as clearly on that specific play.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sports Center.
I'm Jim Bass. Well, baseball's on ESPN. The Mets and Braves cruising along, scoreless into the 7th inning. The Mets losing yet another player, Taijuan Walker, their starter, when 3 scoreless, left the game with left side tightness. The Mets also today placing Michael Conforto and Jeff McNeil on the injured list with hamstring injuries. Cubs Nationals from Wrigley Field has Chicago up top 4-3 as they play the 5th. Jason Hayward, a 2-run shot off John Lester, starting against his former team at Wrigley. The Giants, a half game up on the Padres, coming into play tonight. 8th inning, lead the Reds 5-1. They've gone deep a trio of times. Garrett Cole broke the consecutive strikeout record without a walk at 59 straight tonight. But he served up a long ball to Adolis Garcia as part of a 3-run second. Texas leads the Yankees 3-1 in the 3rd. NHL playoffs. It's game 2 for the Bruins and Capitals. They skate in the 2nd, tied at 2. Craig Anderson starting in net for the Caps, who won the opener in OT. Preds and Canes even at a goal apiece after the 1st, while the Blues and Avs drop the puck later on tonight. St. Louis leading scorer David Perron out in COVID-19 protocols. Denver Broncos hiring Kelly Klein, the title of Executive Director of Football Operations and advisor to the GM. It is believed to be the highest-ranking female scouting executive ever with an NFL team. Ryan Kerrigan signing with the Eagles. He's the Washington football team's all-time leading sack leader. And Bob Baffert temporarily suspended from entering a horse in New York racetracks, including the June 5th Belmont Stakes, pending an investigation on Derby winner Medina Spirit.
We're back on Tuesday looking ahead to the NBA play-in tournament, and we'll tell you the one coach who might need a win to save his job. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, Tuesday morning on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco
If you don't make your cheek pink, you're not staying awake.
Exactly.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Not only am I excited to talk to our friend Matt Derrick right now to talk about everything that we learned from the Chiefs rookie minicamps this weekend, I'm excited for him to tell us what exactly the Chiefs are going to do in the 2021 season based completely just off of what we learned from rookie minicamps. I expect nothing less. I expect exactly that much from Matt Derrick of the KC Sports Network. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Get all the links to all the stuff that KC Sports Network is doing there, but you can also go to kcsportsnetwork.com for all of the various things that our friends over there are kicking off. Matt, pretty much don't need to even write any more stories or have any more conversations. I imagine that you're ready to put a bow on the 2021 Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you can wrap up rookie minicamp and just say 17-0, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
When's the next
Minimum.
book?
What was it, if anything? We had a nice chuckle, and then nobody had anything else to say. That's the
can
rookie
I-
minicamp story.
Can I suggest the title? Would it be 20-0, or is it still, or is it 21-0 now? I guess. Whatever an undefeated Super
they
Bowl
would have-
season is, Matt. Just
Sure.
start the book now. 21-0, 20-0, whatever that number is.
There's always in theory that you could have, especially now, you could have 2 teams go 17-0 in the regular season,
Ooh.
Wow.
which would open up the opportunity to go 21-0. And 3 preseason games, 24-0.
The book just wrote itself.
It's disappointing because I was hoping that your next book would be about how 6 dudes on Twitter said Lucas Niang was fat, and then Andy Reid was like, "Nah, actually, he's good." Because I would read an entire book about that.
You know, the funny thing is that, all points could be true. You know what? Lucas Niang could be fat. I don't know. I haven't weighed him, and I haven't done any measurements on him and everything. But you know what? Sometimes being fat's a good thing for an offensive lineman. Sometimes they want him to be fat.
Here, well, if anybody, because I actually almost completely missed on this because I did find better things to do, I guess, than being involved in this particular discourse this weekend. But one of, we ended up, I don't want to say Dick Justice, the wiener dog, put on his little Sherlock cap back in the day and used to go around and woof at people who tweeted about rumblings. And just because this is, as a wolf to say, this is garbage nonsense, don't follow this person.
Yeah.
And one of Dick Justice's favorite accounts to woof at called Lucas Niang vastly overweight, which is an incredible thing to be able to get as someone who is nowhere near the facilities. Because I wasn't either this weekend, by the way. I'm not casting dispersions. I'm just saying I'm not going to say absolute nonsense with no point of reference for it other than a video the Chiefs may have tweeted out or whatever. Lucas Niang does not appear to be vastly overweight. In fact, Andy Reid said that he came to camp in better shape probably than he did last year at this time. So what do you have literally anything on that particular digital-only fiasco?
I mean, the argument that Lucas Niang is in better shape than he is a year ago would make absolutely complete sense to me, because remember, a year ago at this time, he was coming off the hip surgery, off the labrum injury, and hadn't been doing a lot of workout. Yep. So, if anything, he was probably a little underweight at this time last year, since he wasn't able to work out. Maybe a little bit of that muscle was down. And we didn't get to see him a whole lot last year. I mean, he was literally only in training camp for a week before opting out, and we didn't get to see a lot during that week. So there's not a lot to compare it with. But then, once again, I think if you even look at some of his film from TCU, you're looking at a big man. Mm-hmm. And I saw this pointed out, and I think it's actually a pretty legitimate point that, maybe Chiefs fans are just unaccustomed to what a prototypical NFL offensive lineman looks like, because they haven't had some prototypical offensive linemen in their midst in the last few years. Yeah. Coleccio Simile might have been the best example of a prototypical offensive lineman, because in recent years, especially, in their early years of the Andy Reid era, they wanted these athletic offensive linemen who could get downfield, who could move around in the screen game, who could do the outside zone blocking. So when you see Eric Fisher blocking 50 yards downfield, that's what they came to expect from their offensive linemen. And that's just not the case for every team in the league. Matter of fact, most teams in the league like these giant big maulers that can just push people around. And the Chiefs seem to be evolving in that direction. Yeah. Maybe, certainly they still want some athleticism with their offensive linemen. You can see that. But they also want some big, mean mountain dudes that can push people around.
Yeah, so correct me if any of this ends up being just in any form wrong, but it seems clear to me that they want Orlando Brown to be their guy on the left side for a distant future. I think they want Lucas Niang to win that job over Mike Remmers. I would imagine that they would prefer that simply by age, if nothing else. But even as a player, it seems like Niang probably has the inside edge, or at least that they would prefer that in a perfect world. I guess Creed Humphrey is certainly incredibly athletic for a center, and he can move around some. Tooney can move around. LDT can. I don't really know where Kyle Long is at right now in terms of mobility on a guard scale, but it does seem like, at least on the edges, like you said, that's the direction they're evolving in. Do you think we're going to be able to see little evidences of that if it does end up being Brown and Niang on the outsides, where you see, oh, you know what, they're operating a little bit differently in one form or another now, with this being their new, hopefully, if things go well, their new two starting outside tackles?
I mean, it would reason to believe that there's going to be some trade-offs, that by getting some guys who are bigger, stronger, maybe a little bit more muscular, even with a little bit more heft to them, that you're going to have some trade-offs. And maybe that means that you see the Chiefs running between the tackles a lot more, rather than doing a lot of the outside zone runs that they've done in recent past. Maybe they'll use the running backs out of the backfield a little bit differently, rather than setting up as many of the intricate screen passes that Andy Reid's so good at drawing up. Maybe he looks to find different ways to get running backs the ball in space. Maybe it's a little bit more downfield rather than behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's where I think you're going to see the offense evolve. And, honestly, it needs to. I mean, I think Andy Reid's one of those true believers in the sense that if your offense doesn't change from year to year and evolve from year to year, even if you've got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, your offense is standing still, because teams in the NFL and their defensive coordinators are too good not to be able to get a lot of film on your team and figure out how to beat you. So I think that all of this may just be a big part of the same idea, which is that, Andy Reid sees that his offense needs to keep evolving. the next evolution, maybe it is to be able to protect his quarterback a bit more, run the football a little bit differently, throw the ball to running backs a little bit differently. And if that's the trade-off for being able to protect Patrick Mahomes better, I think they're ready for that.
Yeah, some of the intricacies of that I think are fascinating because I mean, like even thinking back, you mentioned like throwing the ball to running backs in the screen game and stuff. It was the one way that I, as a don't do this, Brett Veach. Oh God, you did it. Even as that guy, I thought, well, at least they'll throw the ball to Clyde a lot in the flat, and they'll work him in the screen game. And the Chiefs just did not do a whole lot of screen game stuff last year. It seemed like that throttled back a little bit. Running in more like light packages, it seems like something that you've seen. I was going to say the 49ers, but they're not. They've got Trent Williams. It's not like they had a wispy offensive line. They just had a fascinating scheme for it. Finding ways for that to evolve. Maybe Andy Reid steps away, like you said, from some of the screen stuff. If you don't feel like your tackles can get out there as much anymore, but it's a trade-off that you accept to make Patrick Mahomes not have to work quite as hard, because to plagiarize our friend Seth Kaiser, I think he talked about this with Eric Fisher somewhere, where Eric Fisher would hold his own against high mid-level sort of competition, but elite guys were beating him more often than you would want your left tackle to get beat. Orlando Brown Jr., theoretically, that right there, what I just described, what you just described, would reason to be the trade-off there, I think.
Yeah, and I haven't dived into the numbers, and I think this is probably worth diving into the numbers because I could be proven wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But just at a glance, looking at the season as from what I remember and what I recall and what stood out to me, is that I felt like the Chiefs, probably used the screen game less than they have in years past.
Yeah.
It felt like that they targeted, trying to get the running backs involved in the passing game less than in years past.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's probably to a degree an overlooked aspect because we talked about the fact that, last year there weren't any OTAs. There wasn't this on the field work, and how great that was for the Chiefs because they had that institutional knowledge all coming back. They had that continuity all coming back. But you know what? Andy Reid has concepts that you just can't pick up in 2 weeks. And they work on those concepts. They introduced them during, even going to phase one of the off season. And yeah, they had that on virtual meetings. But then he's able to get them out on the field in phases 2 and phase 3. And you've got all those practices to start working on the screen game and building concepts and build on top of them with, additions. And then you can pick that up right up in training camp. And last year, honestly, I mean, they had none of that off-field work in the off-season, and then the beginning of training camp was all conditioning.
Yeah.
So we talked about, how advantageous maybe last off-season was for the Chiefs, and I think it was in a lot of ways. But when it came to the complexities that Andy Reid loves to have in his offense, he didn't have the time to put it in. And I think we saw that, especially when it came to getting a rookie like Clyde Edwards-Helaire involved in the offense. That's something I think is going to change this year. And a big reason why I think it's going to change is that they're going to have time to work with him, work with the offensive line, and get everybody, start developing those intricate concepts.
Yeah. That'll be super interesting. We won't be able to prove that one way or another for a long while still, but I like that as something to keep an eye on. Did anything else jump out to you at all from this very sort of limited view of rookies and whatnot? I mean, I know Andy Reid talked about Nick Bolton having an interception. I'm very curious about the pass catchers because I am the person that I am. I'm interested to see Cornell Powell. I'm interested to see how they use Noah Gray. These are conversations that will be a little bit silly to have in training camp, so they're incredibly silly to hone in on now, but I'm going to ask you regardless.
Yeah, and this rookie mini camp, I mean, it was obviously different from years past because with only 29 guys, and I think I counted in 2019 rookie mini camp, I think the Chiefs had 72 players in. And at the same time, I mean, it's rookie mini camp, and when you get that many young guys, and especially like tryout players at a 72-player mini camp, the resemblance to NFL football is accidental. I mean, it usually doesn't look very good. And, and that was something that, especially on Friday. I mean, the weather was actually perfect, but I don't think we saw a single ball past maybe 15, 20 yards completed downfield.
Yeah.
Because, you got quarterbacks and receivers, never worked together before. So, it didn't look super crisp, but, I thought that, for instance, Cornell Powell had one great play on Friday that we got to see where he high-pointed a ball from Shane Buechele, and that came right after the previous play when he had a bad drop that, he was pretty upset about it. I mean, he was slapping his own hands and everything, so he knew he should have had that ball. So, and then he came right back and made a good play. Obviously, Reese Fountain made the team. He looked pretty smooth, so the fact that the tryout guy was managed to, squeeze onto the roster, that was impressive. Dalton Schoen, the local kid from Blue Valley, Northwest, I believe, in K-State, had a really nice sliding catch. I mean, he probably, just based on his experience, because at least he's been in the league for a year, he had, I thought, the smoothest routes. Him and maybe Powell probably looked the most like NFL receivers out there. I thought generally it looked like everybody was moving around pretty well, but those were probably the guys that stood out the most.
All right, I mean, there's one name that you didn't say there that I really would have appreciated you saying, even if you didn't believe it. And I'm also not really sure what position he plays, and I'm not sure the Chiefs are sure what position he plays. But
I know who you're going to mention.
I have been here talking. I am stunned that Jody Fortson is rookie minicamp eligible. It feels like he's been on this team for a decade. He's the only guy. Cause I've literally pulled up the roster here that you tweeted out because I did this at the time and I'm doing it again now. There's the far right column says how acquired, and so it's got the various draft spot or free agency spot or whatever for all these guys and the year they were acquired in. And so like Darrell Williams and Lucas Niang are both 2020 guys. Pretty much everybody is a 2021 guy. And then Jody Fortson, it's -19 because he's been here for a minute. And I want to know when I'm going to get my Jody Fortson breakout game.
It's now or never. I mean, and I honestly, I think that maybe things are, I hate to get you too excited because I'm the same way. I mean, look at Jody Fortson and I'm like, gosh, this seems like the guy that the Chiefs have, I mean, they've been in love with him for 3 years.
Yeah.
So the idea of him somehow onto the field, I mean, they need to be able to do it. And certainly now is the time. He is a tight end. He came in as a tight end, and they moved into the wide receiver room. Then they very quietly last year in the midst of COVID moved him back to the tight end room. So now he's a tight end again. But, I mean, the tough thing is that, especially rookie minicamp, they really wanted to get a lot of work for Noah Gray. So, I almost felt that, Jody Fortson was eligible on kind of the Gary Dieter scholarship of rookie minicamp. I mean, any first-year player is eligible, and because Fortson's been on the practice squad, he's still technically a first-year player, according to accrued season. So that's what lets him get in there. And I felt like maybe he was being there more for Noah Gray than for himself, that he was just kind of being there to, help him out, show him around, work with Tom Melvin on getting him, up to speed and everything, getting him acclimated. But, gosh, I mean, it just seems like you would think if this is the year that Jody Fortson it's going to be Fortson season.
Yes.
This would be it. But then again, Chiefs have Noah Gray. And are they just going to do everything that they can to get him some success this year? And is he going to be that receiving guy? So I think Blake Bell's going to be your blocker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And can you carry 4 tight ends? Is Fortson going to be your number 4 tight end on the practice squad and just kind of be there if somebody goes down?
Nick Keiser is still here. Like, Nick
Keiser's still around? Yeah. It's a brutal tight end room. And in a good way. I mean, because the Chiefs have some options, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I want it to be Fortson season.
Like, maybe he could play like safety, or maybe he could be a weak side linebacker. Maybe he's your Ben Neiman replacement.
6'6", 230. I put him at linebacker.
Why could you? There's got to be a space on the field for 6'6", 230. There's got to be. He's bigger than Noah Gray.
A lot of guys are bigger than Noah Gray.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, I'm going to keep getting my hopes up, and whenever he is eventually let go, I'm going to be absolutely inconsolable for a good month, I'll say. I want to go back to Mike Hughes in a second, but one other thing that's sort of it was a semi-newsworthy thing yesterday in the wee hours of the morning. Tyrann Mathieu was searching his name on Twitter and responded to a tweet asking, "Are we ever going to get a Tyrann Mathieu extension?" He was not tagged in the tweet, but Matthew saw it and responded, "Probably not. Been here before. All good." And then he deleted the tweet, but screenshots live forever, so here we are. I don't think for a second that Tyrann Mathieu has said that he will not sign an extension or that he's not going to get one or anything. We went through what ended up being a somewhat tumultuous and somewhat Twitter-fied contract negotiation with Chris Jones that looked a little bit like this at times, and the tweet was probably up for a grand total of, I'm actually looking at timestamps, 5 minutes. But does that do anything for you? I know Brett Veach was asked about the Tyrann Mathieu contract extension thing after the draft because they didn't draft any safety help. Do you have any feel of what the timeline on that might be and what you think the likelihood is that they do end up getting a deal done?
I don't know if anybody does, and that includes Brett Veach and Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, it certainly seems as though it's one of those things that's on the back burner. Because we haven't been hearing, even smoke signals about talks. It hasn't been, hey, Brett Veach said, you know what, hey, I'm going to be reaching out to Tyrann's agent this week. We've got some things going on. We'll be talking soon. We haven't been getting that even. And you're right. I mean, it's not totally dissimilar to what we saw last year with Chris Jones. I mean, Chris Jones was pretty frustrated, it seemed like, at this time last year. So at one point, you're saying, hey, yeah, you know what? It doesn't look like there's a lot of smoke here right now. Maybe they're farther apart than we think. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think that there's any reason as a Chiefs fan to be concerned that if an extension isn't done by the beginning of the season. I mean, that's about what you're talking about. They've got plenty of time between now and September to get something done. If they get into week one and get started and there's nothing done, then I think you're probably thinking to yourself, I do wonder if Tyrann Mathieu is going to be around. Yeah. And I don't necessarily blame Mathieu for, having thoughts in the back of his mind because he's been here before. I mean, he's been with some teams that he hasn't stuck around with. And he knows how that kind of feels and what kind of happens. So, but then again, I don't know if we should ever report anything based on what an NFL player tweets between, say, 11:30 at night and 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because anytime, I mean, it's like my mom used to always tell me, nothing good ever happens after midnight. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, except there's a much longer window for NFL players on Twitter.
For Tyrann Mathieu, 6:30 a.m. I think is a bathroom tweet. If I had to guess, right? Twitter for iPhone. Look at the screenshot right now. That
at the very least, you're just getting up in the morning. And aren't we all cranky in the morning?
Absolutely.
And the first thing we see is somebody asking us if we're going to have a new contract done.
100%. So with that in mind, let me guess at you, and you tell me if this all tracks, because I do want to try to make. I don't want people to, like you said, start getting terribly alarmed that this deal's not going to happen. But the frustration from Mathieu, I think, ends up being pretty reasonable. If you're on the last year of your deal, you feel like you've done everything right in Kansas City, including winning and performing at a very high level. And it's May, so for the Chiefs, the Chiefs right now, what's the rush? What is the advantage of getting a deal done right now as opposed to getting a deal done, like you said, let's even make it training camp for the sake of where I'm going to go with this. I thought they were going to get it done before the free agency period, so they'd have more cap wiggle room. They didn't, so now we're here. So if you're the Chiefs, what's the rush? If you're Tyrann Mathieu, at least for me, I'd be thinking, hey man, I can be patient for a little while, but whenever I'm out there during training camp, I'm actually using my body on the football field to run around and make cuts and to do things. I don't want to put myself out there physically without having some more stuff locked in because I'm in a contract year now. Like that, I can see that being a very reasonable frustration for him, while also thinking that the Chiefs probably don't have any crazy incentive to get it done right this second because there's not anything to really gripe about. Does that track for you, or am I missing anything? Would you add anything to that?
No, it does track, and if anything, I mean, I could see a player in Tyron's position who's looking around the league and saying to himself, you know what? I mean, I've seen some guys get hurt, and they've even lost their jobs. You know, especially with the OTAs and players, you know, around the league. Now the Chiefs don't have that problem. I mean, vast majority of the rosters, you know, in town for phase 2. But you know, hey, yeah, he knows that at this point in his career, at his age, his next contract is his last big contract. And yeah, I mean, I probably have the kind of same thoughts going through, and I wouldn't blame him if he had those thoughts going through his head. It's like, you know what? If I go down, not blood an ACL or get an injury here, it's going to cost me tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that's why he would like to get it done. And I think you've hit on another really excellent point, which is that there's no evidence whatsoever that the Chiefs have done anything to prepare for a future without Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they've got Juan Thornhill. That's pretty much it for 2022. I mean, there's nobody else on the roster that you're really saying that signed up for the long term that you're saying and seeing as a key piece of this team. I mean, you know, Dan Sorensen's on the, you know, twilight years of his career. He's probably best suited to be your number 3 safety on a really good team. You know, they've got some other young guys around, but nobody that's under contract and nobody that has hit yet. And then they're still looking for guys like Will Parks to come in and maybe compete for a spot. So, you know, I don't see the future in Kansas City at the safety position unless it involves, frankly, Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill.
I think that's got to be it. I mean, to go into the last year of a deal like that with no real plan there just doesn't seem super Vichian either. So I'll take that as a vote of confidence there. Talk to me about Mike Hughes a little bit. The Chiefs make this trade. They do another. I'm going to keep using the phrase. They do a very Vichian thing in this circumstance, trading for a former first-round pick who had injury issues, never fully panned out in Minnesota. It cost them a late-round pick swap next year, adds another guy to a defensive backfield that has a few guys sort of like that in various circumstances. What did you make of that trade? What do you think it says about where they stand right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably get too excited about this trade based on who Mike Hughes is, because I think that so far from what I've seen, a lot of people get really hyped up about the fact, hey, he was a former first-round pick, tremendous athletic talent, still 24, a lot of upside. But the reality of it is that it's never really clicked that much on the field. I mean, he had a good stretch in year 2 when he looked decent. But other than that, I mean, he's had nothing but injury problems and, frankly, performance problems too.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Chiefs gave absolutely nothing for Mike Hughes. So if this doesn't work out, he comes to town, you realize it's not a good fit, or, you know, the injuries have just been too much of an, you know, are still there. Maybe he's just not getting it. You're losing absolutely nothing. I mean, you lost 40 draft spots in the draft position from the 6th to the 7th round. That's nothing. But this is an absolutely Brett Vichian buy low, hope you get high. That's a great drop for you.
I was trying not to make any noises around it because I'd like to have it.
I was trying to figure a way out of that sentence structure, and I realized I just had to bite the bullet. But yeah, I mean, it is a classic Vichian move in that you're picking up a player that, you know, just you're hoping needs a change of scenery, a change in coaching, a new defense, maybe some fresh eyes on the injuries, and that you can resurrect it. And if it doesn't work, no skin off Brett Veach's nose because he didn't really give up anything.
Yeah. The issues for moves like this come whenever you need Orlando Scandrick to play meaningful snaps. That's when any sort of these little reclamation projects or these gambles, he was obviously older than Hughes is, whenever David Amerson comes in as a solution. I don't get the feeling that the Chiefs are expecting Mike Hughes to start day one to fix anything, but that he's a decent little gamble to get into the building. Is that fair?
Absolutely fair. And because I had the exact same conversation on Friday with Jason Anderson, which is people who are down on the Chiefs, you know, secondary and the cornerback group. You know, remember it was 3 years ago that they were bringing in guys off the street in August and putting him in the starting lineup.
Just say Mo Claiborne's name. Was that 3 years ago?
Well, Orlando Scandrick was the rock bottom.
Yeah, that's true.
Of that era. But you were just bringing in guys off the street and putting them in the lineup.
Yep.
Right now, there is nobody on the street that you could sign and say, you know what, that's Chiefs, number 2 corner. I mean, they're at least that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. I mean, if Mike Hughes hits, fantastic. I mean, if he's your number 5 corner and you're happy with him, that means your top 4 guys are doing really well.
So I am going to continue on a weekly basis until he signs a football contract to play football somewhere about Bashaud Breeland. I believe last time you gave us a 1% chance of him being a member of the Chiefs. This year, can I get 2%?
I would probably. I don't think the Mike Hughes addition changes a whole lot with the Bashaud Breeland equation. I mean, honestly, I'd probably dial it down to 0.9. But once again, it's still, if the Chiefs, there's nothing holding them back. They know Bashaud Breeland. If they wanted him here, he'd be here. So at some level, you got to think that they're just done and not moving forward. And it raises, certainly some questions about, there's 31 other teams that haven't seen the interest either. And I don't know. I mean, and maybe his best, it could certainly be at this point with the offers that he's getting, if it is a lot of teams offering a vet minimum, maybe he's best just sitting back and wait until some teams get some injuries.
Yeah.
In OTAs or training camp, and all of a sudden he's going to be the Orlando Scandrick, getting a good contract to come in and save somebody in August. But I'm just not sold it's going to be Kansas City.
You just had to hurt him.
Thanks.
You okay, Josh?
No.
Do I need to send you over some chicken or something?
I mean, that always helps. whatever my mood is, it's never gonna be made worse with the addition of chicken, right? Because if I'm in a bad mood and I get some chicken fingies out here, then I'm going to be in. At least it's going to be a straight up mood improver, for while I'm eating it, and I'm probably gonna leave that interaction feeling a little better than I did before. If I'm in a great mood and then some chicken shows up, I'm going to lose my mind out of pure joy. So there's never a time in which my mood is not going to be elevated by a click or two with a plate of fried chicken.
Very, very solid. I can't disagree with that. I'm the same way.
I've thought more about that than I have about the Chiefs starting cornerbacks this year. I've spent a lot of time on both, but I've spent slightly more time on the chicken. One very last thing here. My instinct is to just let you go because you've broken my heart about Bashaud Breeland once again. But I saw this on my notes and thought, I'll be mad with myself next segment if I don't get Matt to say something about this. The Chiefs are getting a pretty full roster of guys for OTAs and whatnot. I think the number was 81. But as lots of teams are fully boycotting, the voluntary workouts or have said that they would, and we'll see how that all pans out. And obviously there's some tension between players and the association and the team. There's just a lot going on in that regard right now. It seems like the Chiefs are going to get pretty much full participation with that, and that it's going to sort of be a non-issue. Is that your understanding there as well? And what do you think the impact of that it could be?
Yeah, I mean, it is, at least in Kansas City, it's kind of a non-issue. I mean, we haven't, really gotten a whole lot into who are the guys who aren't there right now. But, as we talked about, the Chiefs have a lot of guys who have some workout bonuses. Mm-hmm. And, that's they're here to collect those. And the NFLPA did not put any pressure on the Chiefs whatsoever to sit out OTAs because they know that this team's got guys that have got money coming to them, and they're not going to turn down money on the table. So I would expect that all the guys have bonuses are here for the most part. I believe there's a little bit of a wrinkle that they can still even get their full bonuses if they show up next week, which is when Phase 3 starts. Phase 2 this week is just lifting, and they get to kind of go out on the field and work a little bit, but they're not out there with coaches and doing anything too crazy. They're not running plays or anything. So, next week is when it really starts in earnest, and that's when I think that the the big guys around the league are going to be on who's where and what are they doing. But in Kansas City, it's not going to be a lot of drama because, yeah, like I said, I mean, the Chiefs seem to have worked it out between Reed and he was talking to Patrick Mahomes and Tyrann Mathieu about how to structure all this to make everybody happy, and it seems like they've done that. So we'll see what it translates into, especially in Phase 3, which is when they would be having those 10 OTA practices and then the 3-day mandatory minicamp. And remember, all this is voluntary. So if the players don't want to show up, if they're not getting paid to show up, would you show up?
Well, you're asking me, a person who works in media, as opposed to like a person, and I mean, I think honestly, probably yes, because we're talking the specific industries that we're talking about, probably because there's always both in sports and in sports media, there's 47 people ready to take any one person's job.
Yeah, and you know what, and that's why most people end up do show up at these things. But we know from past history in Kansas City that hey, not everybody shows up.
Yep.
Usually it's and in my case, in this case, I have no insight. It's pure speculation. My guess would be that the handful of guys not showing up are probably veterans that are pretty secure in their job but don't have workout bonuses.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, and you get to spend even another week at home, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think that's fair. I was going to try to connect some other analogy, and I figured the only way that I could do that would be to get me in trouble in some way I can't even fully fathom at the moment. So I'm just going to end it there. The one thing that one person that I do hope is there at camp is Bashaud Breeland. And I'm just going to keep my hopes up because I'm going to be crushed whenever he signs with the freaking Eagles or whatever anyway. So I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
The day that Bashaud Breeland signs with the Chiefs is when you will give me all the grief that I gave you for making fun of my Nick Bolton or bust comment. And you're going to be bringing up 0.9% in my face.
Listen, I can only hope that happens because that's something we can even get near even. And I'm not holding my breath because frankly, if I was holding my breath, I would have passed that already. And I've had hiccup issues on this show recently. So I know all about holding my breath on the radio and it only making things worse. You're right about Nick Bolton. I hope you're wrong about Bashaud Breeland. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Joshua. Take care.
Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Check out KCSportsNetwork.com for what he and all the rest of the crew are doing over there. And tweet him and just say, report Bashaud Breeland to the Chiefs. So people do that to Schefter's mentioned sometimes, even though it's a totally ridiculous thing that he has no control over. Just tweet at Matt Derrick, announce Breeland to Chiefs. And just maybe eventually he'll just do it just to make all of us shut up.
Announce it, Matt.
Come on, Matt. Break the news, Matt. I was going to say that I'll break the news, but then I got self-conscious about the fact that I really don't want to announce news that I know for a fact to not be true. You know what? I don't know. There's a chance that I could say the Chiefs have signed Bashaud Breeland, and then between when I say those words and when they hit your ears, that's in the 7-second delay or whatever, maybe he'll have signed.
Maybe the Chiefs will have just signed a Breeland.
Wow, great point.
There's at least two of them.
Yeah, that's true. He's in Speaks as a free agent again.
Two Breelands out there.
Chiefs are gonna the Chiefs. Oh, here we go. Here's ready. The Chiefs have signed Bashaud Breeland twice in previous years.
They've signed two Breelands.
They've signed. That's exactly
they
right.
Have signed two Breelands and only cut one.
They have not signed Bashaud Breeland for the 2021 NFL season, however, which is the thing that currently has me in a bit of a sour mood.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
I now have a craving for this wonderful, totally real, not at all artificial synthetic juice product that I don't know that I've had in a decade. And I just kind of want to pound a little Sunny D.
Why you
And don't make that a liner.
Too late.
With Joshua Brisco.
And I just kind of want to pound a little Sunny D.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You guys taking care of your bodies, would you say? Just generally speaking?
Definitely not. My back's in a ton of pain.
I still have it. Molly Beck on Twitter tweeted out this study from the World Health Organization on NPR. People working 55 or more hours each week face an estimated 35% higher risk of a stroke and a 17% higher risk of dying from heart disease compared to people following the widely accepted standard of working 35 to 40 hours in a week, according to WHO. WHO.
I've been saying this is how I go.
The band?
You guys laugh.
No. I was trying to avoid you saying, says who? And I accidentally walked into the Who, and we're still here anyway.
On first?
I just saw this tweet from the social media director of the Warriors, just going by her bio, Karen Ramming. And just as everyone who works in sports seeing this, and then it's the little Simpsons guy in the back of the bus just going, chuckles, I'm in danger.
Ralph.
What's his name? Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph.
It's Ralph going, I'm in danger. That was kind of funny. Just saw the tweet. That's how the segment starts sometimes.
Yep.
Let's get into something that Andy Reid said yesterday whenever he was talking about Lucas Niang. I will make this point again. I don't know where it started. I don't know why it started. I didn't see anyone credible tweeting about it this sort of judgmentally. But some people, including some hashtag like Chiefs Twitter influencers.
Insiders, you could say.
I wouldn't, but you sure could. Or tweeting about Lucas Niang reporting to camp vastly overweight. This man has a belly. That's true. NFL offensive lineman, I don't know. Like Matt said, I mean, fat for Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz are going to look different. Then wait till you see Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown is a thick dude. Part of his job. Anyway. I thought that at the very least, Lucas Niang was still probably going to be kind of the most interesting storyline of this minicamp, maybe outside of the rookies, but he's basically a rookie. And I would say at this point, maybe behind Creed Humphrey, maybe, I think is the rookie of this class who will have the greatest impact week one, year one. I think they very much want him to play right tackle. I think they would love for him to beat out Mike Remmers on the right side. I think they would love for Creed Humphrey to be Austin Blythe in the middle. I think those guys are in relatively similar positions, but Andy Reid talked about Lucas Niang whenever he spoke to the media yesterday, and he was asked if there are any benefits of Niang opting out last year, and Reid went on to address a whole lot more about the Chiefs' hopeful right tackle of the future.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the pluses are he was able to keep himself COVID-free, and but most of our guys did. So I mean, my credit goes out to everybody that was involved with that. But he's done a nice job in this camp, Adam. I mean, he's a big man, like really a big man that has these beautiful feet. So I look forward to getting him back in the pads in training camp and moving around and and doing what offensive linemen do, the real football part of it. But till then, this gives him a chance to get acclimated mentally and physically as he goes forward. So I think it's a good lead up for him.
In his case, did you see any rust this weekend? Could you tell, hey, this is a guy who's been out of football for a year? And if you could, how did you see that?
Well, you can tell he's worked. The thing with this, Adam, is there was no offense versus defense with the lines. So we didn't have one-on-ones or any of that. And he had done all that during training camp. So like all players, that'll be a challenge down the road for him to get back into that. But for right now, he looked tremendous for what we were doing. Good recall there.
Also specifically on the issue of the shape that Lucas Niang was in getting to camp. Andy was also asked if there's anything that Niang needs to catch up on after missing that season last year.
We actually came in better shape than he probably was last year. So that's that's a plus. He's been doing stuff, and so he came in and it looked like he got right back into it. For what we asked him to do, he was fine. He's a very intelligent kid. I think you guys know that, but he's very intelligent. So just getting him back in the swing of things, it looked like he did that well.
He's going to be a super interesting guy to keep an eye on whenever they're like actually wearing pads and whatnot. I think it'd be a little bit silly to take way too much stock into what we're seeing in rookie mini camps, but just wanted to at least bring you what Andy Reid said about Lucas Niang, because Twitter was very weird about Lucas Niang like 2 days ago. Also, I could have just stopped after the phrase Twitter was very weird, because that would also be true. But something to keep an eye on, something to keep an ear to. We'll take a break whenever we come back. Maybe we'll talk a little more about the Chiefs' offensive line, a little bit about Lucas Niang, a little bit more about the phrase big man with beautiful feet. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we'll talk about one of those things whenever we come back.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
But you like just open the door a little bit and sort of stick your face out. And you're like, hey, hi, how are you? I'm like, hi, I am Herbert Hoover with Hoover Vacuums. Would you like a vacuum today? And we're like, no, I really don't. But like, oh, but we're Kansas football. We really suck.
You made Herbert Hoover a vacuum salesman?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You good, Rudy?
Yep.
Back has not been good the last 3, 4, 5 days ish.
Hell, I don't feel like your back has been great the last 3, 4, 5 years.
My back has not been great. Since I was probably like 16, but it's been rough the last like 5 days.
I just like that you decided to just reset your structure right into the microphone as soon as it was back on. Like, that one's not on Beards. Beards knows that he's got to have the mics on pretty early in the song, because I might just be rat-tat-tat-tat.
Yeah.
He was there.
Yeah.
And you gave it just a good, it's a good back stretch. Don't raise your eyebrows.
It wasn't really even a back stretch. It was when you're old and you move, I fought it. I fought the noise. The noise is coming out. This
hour has been all Chiefs, and we've got less than a minute. Here's the Chiefs topic that'll take me less than a minute. They cut Tajay Sharp, and they released him today. They added him a while back as just like a receiver wild card, throw him in the room. I tweeted this at the time. Literally nothing there would have surprised me. Him getting cut before training camp, not really a surprise. If he would have been a role player, it wouldn't have really been a surprise. Here's the thing, though. As has been established in previous landers, we get so horny for Traymon Smith. Armani Watts gets the juices pumping, right?
Khalil McKenzie.
Not every player that you've heard of is going to end up making an impact. Yep. And the only time that I heard about Tajay Sharp recently was whenever I was tweeting during the draft about how the Chiefs are going to have a less talented receiver room this year than they did last year, as things currently stand. And I got a lot of people saying, but they signed Tajay Sharp. It doesn't always work like that. That's all.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm Jim Basketball. Baseball, it's on ESPN. They play the 8th inning in Atlanta where the Mets lead the Braves 3-0. Scary moment in this game. Kevin Pillar hit in the face with a fastball from Jacob Webb. There was blood out in front of home plate. He left the game. It's now a 3-1 contest in that 8th inning. Cubs and Nationals as they play the 7th inning at Wrigley Field. John Lester starting against his former team, lasting 5 1/3, 5 runs. Jason Hayward, Javi Baez, and Wilson Contreras going yard. Kyle Schwarber going deep against his former team as well, but it's a 6-3 Cubs game in the 7th. NBA play-in tournament and starts tomorrow. In the East, it's the Hornets and Pacers, followed by the Celtics and Wizards. All games on ESPN Radio, while in the West, it's Wednesday, Spurs, Grizzlies, and of course the Warriors and Lakers. The West is also on ESPN TV. Andre Snelling's wondering, when the playoffs actually start, will the Nets' big three be ready?
They played 8 games together. That's not something that we've typically seen. And even in the past, like I know the Pistons in 04 say had only played maybe 17 games together after the Rasheed Wallace trade, but the others had played together for years. Like Sheed was a new piece. This is the first time you have a whole team of new parts coming together. So, I mean, 8 games isn't a lot, but, I mean, they've got talent to pull it off.
The Nets will get the 7th seed in the playoffs. Meantime, NHL second season, Garnett Hathaway has a pair of goals. Caps in the 3rd lead the Bruins 3-2. They're up in the series 1-0. Preds and Canes tied at 2 after 2, and it's the Avs and Blues getting started top of the hour.
Hey, it's Greeny, and we'll be busy on Tuesday getting set for the NBA play-in games and talking baseball with the one and only Al Leiter. We'll see if he calls me Goldie again.
Oh, that's good, Goldie.
It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN Plus.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
All right, so we thought we would have real baseball at this point, and we don't yet.
On Sports Radio 810. WHB.
I'll explain this to you, dear listener, as I explain it to our next guest, Max Rieper of Royals Review. You know, like any good sports radio show, when we talk baseball, we play center field. It's in the manual they hand you about how to do sports talk radio, and so we do it. The issue is that somewhere along the lines, Beards got very, very bored of the original version of center field and started making these horrendous Frankensteinian concoctions, these remixes, the chopped and screwed versions of center field. And I specifically told him this time, please, Beards, just pick a relatively tame one. And this one still sucks.
This is tame.
But it could definitely be worse.
It hasn't gotten to the bad part yet.
Oh, how far away is it?
Hurry up and get to Max.
I don't want to bring Max into the worst part of the song.
Well, I'm saying get to Max early, and then I'll cut it before that happens.
You can follow Max on Twitter at Max Rieper. You can follow at Royals Review as well. You can read RoyalsReview.com. He's the editor-in-chief of the site there. We will talk baseball with him now. Is this when's the bad part?
In about
Beards?
30 seconds. You don't want it.
I just heard DiMaggio 4 times in chipmunk voices. Get it out of here. Get Max in here. Max, first of all, I apologize that this is the way that you were shuffled into the show today. This is even worse than the Royals losing streak.
Yeah, sounds like you're drowning a bunch of chipmunks.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that version of the song.
No, it's bad, and I wish I could be drowning beards instead, but we settle for chipmunks.
Well, yeah, I guess once you get bored with every version of center field, I guess you got to start scraping the bottom of the barrel. So I understand.
And that, boy, God, if we could put that on a T-shirt for this show, huh? I mean, that's perfect. What's not perfect is everything sort of baseball adjacent at this point. I'll start with the newest sort of thing, and we were actually quoting from your story back in the first segment tonight, talking about Danny Duffy. He goes on the IL with the flexor strain, and you wrote about the details of that a little bit in your story up on Royals Review after the news came out. Obviously, it can end up connecting to Tommy John. I don't know at this point how you feel, what you think is reasonable to be expecting. It's obviously a miserable piece of news for what's been a really miserable month for the Royals. Jesus,
That was a little
Beards.
louder than I expected.
Beards.
That one was a little too loud.
That
My
was an
bad.
act of violence.
My bad. That one was too loud.
That was Beards. What was that? I thought the equipment exploded.
It was a bat crack.
Go to timeout. Go to timeout. You lose center field privileges for at least the rest of this segment.
I just thought it was like my headphones for a second.
Yeah, I
It was
thought
just
something
me.
bad happened and it was Beards. Max, I'm sorry. Anyway, now the delicate point of how are you feeling currently about Danny Duffy? If you hung up right now, I wouldn't blame you. I really wouldn't.
Hey, the masks come off, and I guess just all protocols go out the window. There's no social distancing, no covering up for sneezes, nothing. All bets are off at this point, I guess.
Goodness. Oh my God, that's just the absolute worst. So anyway, Danny Duffy goes to the IL. The season was going great for him. This is terrible news, regardless, I think, of what you expect it to lead to.
Yeah, I mean, look, we had an 11-game losing streak. We finally snapped that, right?
Yep.
And then, they looked, kind of impressive in one game, and then they snapped the winning streak, or snapped the losing streak. And then, we get the gut punch Sunday where it looks like, they can kind of hang around, and they lose in really excruciating fashion. And then today we get the news about Danny Duffy. So, yeah, it's been a rough couple days for Royals fans. The Duffy thing, we kind of came out of the blue. We got news today that Chris Bubich was going to be making the start tomorrow. And immediately that kind of raised some eyebrows, because that meant that Danny Duffy wasn't going to start until at least Friday, which would be 9 days off. And so you start thinking, okay, why are they pushing him back? And then we get the news that he is going on the injured list with a flexor strain. And yeah, the first thing you think about when you hear anything with the forearm is, Tommy John surgery. Mm-hmm. And this is not, it's common. It's sometimes a precursor to Tommy John surgery, having some sort of forearm strain, but it's not always a Tommy John related injury. And so we just kind of have to hope for the best with this. But he is probably out for several weeks. I saw one study that had the median timeout to be 42 days. I've seen another one that said the mean was 117 days, which that may include a lot of the Tommy John guys who missed for an entire year. So, it's hard for me. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to even speculate how long Duffy's going to be out, especially since we don't know much about the injury itself. But suffice to say, he's probably going to be out for a significant amount of time. And, what bad timing for him. Like you say, he's having a great start. He was throwing harder than really he ever has in the last couple of years. His off-speed stuff was looking really good. Just really looked like he was in kind of peaking again and showing what he's capable of doing. And I think you mentioned this earlier. He's in a contract year. Yeah. So his kind of livelihood is on the line here. And, he had a Tommy John surgery back in 2012. And the old wisdom is that a second Tommy John surgery is usually close to a career ender. Now, there's been advances in medicine, I think, since then, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore. I also know that there are experimental procedures with UCL injuries, and that's not what he has yet. But if you were to get to that case, there are experimental procedures to avoid Tommy John surgery at this point and shorten the timetable a little bit. But it's certainly not an injury you want. Anything around the UCL, around the elbow, it's not something that's good. And, Danny Duffy, he's had a lot of injuries over the years, shoulder, hamstring, oblique, but he's kind of avoided that elbow injury since 2012. And, like I said, you really got to feel for the guy, because he finally was putting it all together this year, and to just get that kind of news, I'm sure it's going to be a huge blow to him, but it's a huge blow to the Royals as well, as they were trying to kind of get back get their solid footing after a long losing streak.
Yeah, and I'm curious what you think this is going to end up meaning for the pitching staff as a whole, because, everything ends up being connected the way guys are shuffling around right now, right? Where you start seeing the bullpen just gets guys chipped out of it for a while, and then you shuffle some things around, like sending Jake Junis to the bullpen to try to lengthen it a little bit, and that obviously doesn't go very well. Then Bubich is in the pen, and now Bubich is starting tomorrow, and now Duffy being out of the rotation means that Bubich is out of the pen and probably should have been starting anyway, I would guess. But it just seems like there's a lot of shuffling at the moment. Do you have an expectation as to what they'll try to do to just sort of stabilize the pitching staff at this point?
Well, yeah, the good thing is they have options, right? This isn't a situation where they're throwing out Eduardo VSC's, go from AA to the big leagues, and even though you're not ready, and because we don't have anyone else ready to go, they've got a lot of starting pitching options. I think more than we've seen out of a Royals team in really quite some time. And look, they're not like they're all Clayton Kershaw's or Max Scherzer's out there, but I think they're guys that can give you solid 5 innings, 6 innings, turn it over to the bullpen kind of guys. So Chris Bubich, he's going to start tomorrow against the Brewers. He's a guy I like, and like you said, I think he probably should have been in the rotation the whole time, but he had a really shaky spring training, wasn't really hitting the spots. I think they wanted to give him some extra time to kind of work on his command a little bit, and he's looked great in long relief, kind of pitching some slop innings, pitching some innings they really needed out of that bullpen, and he did a really terrific job. So he's going to get a chance in that starting rotation, and I'm really eager to see what he can do, because he's a guy that I think wasn't getting a lot of hype before last year, and he went out and really performed pretty well and kind of exceeded expectations as really just a fastball changeup pitcher, and we'll have to see how the league responds to him kind of now that there's a book on him, now that they've seen him for a full season. How does he respond to that? But I'm really anxious to see how he does, and maybe he can be a part of that rotation. So he's going to get first crack at it. It looks like Jacob Junis will likely have a spot in this rotation, although I think that's still kind of up in the air. I know I was chatting with Alex Duvall at Royals Farm Report, who he's kind of advocating for Jackson Kowar to come on up. Jackson Kowar, who looked really good in a couple of starts for Omaha. I think he'd line up the way he's last pitched, I think, on Sunday, so he'd line up to be available this weekend if the Royals needed him. I don't know if that's the direction they'd go after the way the Daniel Lynch experiment didn't go so well. Maybe they might be a little more patient with Kowar, but I would expect Junis to get the start this weekend. Like you said, the bullpen experiment with him didn't really go very well. He was doing pretty well as a starter, but they seem to have their reasons for wanting to kind of move him to the bullpen, kind of slowly push him towards the bullpen. I think that they think that his slider would play better in the pen, and we'll see. But this is kind of his chance. These things happen. The injuries happen. That's kind of an opportunity. It's terrible for Danny Duffy, but it's kind of an opportunity for some other guys to maybe show what they can do. And like I said, they have some options they can go to that and not feel like they have to stretch their pitching staff too thin. So it'll be nice to have those options out there. That's why you built this kind of depth.
Yeah. I'm also so glad you said exactly what you did about Kowar and Lynch, because I mentioned this earlier in the show, and I was going to ask if I was being unreasonable to say, boy, I was excited for Daniel Lynch, and it seems like he was probably just tipping pitches and also not pitching terribly well. So send him back down, and I am not a patient baseball fan. I know this about myself. I'm not bragging about that. I'm just telling you it's honest. I want to see Bobby Witt Jr. yesterday. I want the pitching staff up here as quickly as they can reasonably get here without it being detrimental to their development. It's just sort of where I'm at right now. But I get a little, I got a little gun shy on the idea of, oh yeah, sure, just bring up Jackson Kowar, because the Lynch thing did go so poorly. And it sounds like you think there's maybe some merit to that hesitation.
Yeah, I think I think you really don't. I think you want to avoid having a guy getting his brains beat in at the major league level.
Yeah.
Not that guys can't overcome that. I mean, Roy Halladay is a perfect example of a guy that just really struggled his first year and then obviously came on to become a Cy Young winner. But it's not great for the confidence to go out and put up a 4-digit ERA your first 3 starts. I would say the one difference between Kowar and Lynch is that Daniel Lynch went basically straight from A ball to the big leagues with a year off, in between. Jackson Kowar at least has gone to AAA and just flat out dominated. He has a 1.15 ERA in his first 3 starts. He's looked really sharp. He has 22 strikeouts. I mean, he's a guy that is facing, the creme de la creme of of minor leagues, and is really doing well. And so, I'm not ready to say, okay, he's ready after 3 starts, but at least he looks like he would handle that transition maybe a little bit better than Lynch, who, like I said, is just jumping straight up from Abel. So if they were to go that route, I would say that it's not quite the same situation, but I would caution against rushing guys up. And the fact that they have options, Jacob Junis, I think is at times been a perfectly fine starter. I don't feel, it's not like I think the Royals don't have a chance when he goes out on the mound. In fact, early in the year, he looked quite good. So I'm kind of eager to see what he can do. And then, other than that, they still have some other options beyond that. Ronald Bolaños was a guy they called up over the weekend just in case they need that 27th man, and they didn't. But he's a guy that pitched well in his first start for Omaha, has some big league experience as well. So they'd have some other options there as well. I don't think they would need to bring up Kowar. Kowar is not on the 40-man roster, which is another consideration. So I think Jacob Junis is going to end up starting this weekend. That makes the most sense to me, but Kowar would be an option. I think his time off would kind of line up with this weekend if that's the route they wanted to go.
Let's talk about a good outing then from a young pitcher, because Brady Singer looked pretty good yesterday. He wasn't perfect, and he came back out for the 7th and ended up being on a very short leash and got an out and then gave up a hit and then got out of there. But it seemed like a good outing for him. He went out over 100 pitches. What did you see from him yesterday, and how have you kind of felt about the variety of outings from Singer so far this year?
Well, it's kind of interesting that he has had a variety of outings. He's had some good ones and he's had some not so good ones. And what's good is that he really went out there and was battling, and after a not so great performance the time before that. And I think with him, you always kind of his emotions and his the way he handles himself. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. You like to have a fiery guy out there who's competing. At the same time, you don't want him to lose control of his emotions and get down on himself or get down on the umpires or blame everyone but himself. So there's always kind of that fine line. And, when he blew up at Angel Hernandez a couple weeks ago, you could look at that as like, okay, that's great that he has a fire and we're all mad at on Angel Hernandez. And so, I understand that. But at the same time, you don't want him to carry that over to his next start and blame the umpiring for why he didn't pitch very well or, for his why he got hit. But he's bounced back and had some good outings. So for him, it seems like it's come down to the slider, whether or not that slider is really working, getting that good bite, and it seemed to be working this weekend. So I think he's going to be a guy that the consistency is I think still going to be an issue, mostly just because he's young and he doesn't have that real great third pitch yet. He did throw I think a 1 or 2 changeups on Sunday, so I don't know if he's just trying to work that in kind of slowly into his repertoire. But right now the slider is working pretty well, and I think because it gets so much movement, gets so much break, when it's on, it's going to be a successful pitch, even if it's only that pitch and his fastball, which has pretty good sink to it. So far the formula I think is working. And like I said with Bubic, I think we'll want to see the more the league gets a kind of a book on him. How does he react to that? How does he adjust? Do guys kind of just wait for that slider? They learn to spit on it. And how does he react to that? Does he develop a third pitch? Does he develop, a different approach? We'll have to see. But so far, I think you have to be pretty impressed with Brady Singer. You always worry about the sophomore slump and a little bit of regression, but so far, I think he's handled the success pretty well.
It's funny that we might go this entire segment and only talk about pitching and then maybe some extracurricular stuff, but I also have to ask about the decision and then also the performance for Wade Davis yesterday. He comes out and he's the guy that Matheny calls on to close out the game. It's not like they had a full bullpen of healthy arms. I mean, healthy and rested, obviously, another tremendous issue. It was relatively slim pickings for Matheny there. Wade comes out and ends up losing it there. What is... the word that I keep seeing paired with Wade Davis is washed. That was the Twitter phrase. It's just that Wade Davis is fully washed at this point. I don't know if he is fully washed. I do know that I wanted to wash my eyes out after that outing. Where are you right now on what Wade Davis can and can't do, and what's an okay role for him on this team if there is one for him, and what isn't?
Yeah, so I'll defend Wade a little bit here. Mm-hmm. So. First of all, there were a couple cutters in there that looked pretty darn good. They kind of reminded me of the Wade Davis of the past, and that was kind of encouraging, I suppose. And the balls that hurt him, I mean, the Tim Anderson pitch wasn't that bad of a pitch. Tim Anderson's just a great hitter, and he got a hold of one. The Yerman Mercedes hit was like up at his eyes, and he just plunked it out there. Mm-hmm. And then he hit Abreu on a not very good pitch and had a wild pitch, which ultimately cost him the game. So if there is something that he would get nicked for, it was being a little bit wild. And I think the other thing you would probably nick him for is he's not a big strikeout pitcher at this point in his career. And what you kind of needed facing the heart of that White Sox lineup is strikeouts, because you don't want to leave it to the hands of balls and batting average on balls in play and hoping you don't get, dinked and dunked and leave it up to wild pitches and controversial calls at home plate. So, there's not a lot of great options out there. And Wade Davis is probably the least the worst of all those options. Mm-hmm. And look, Matheny has to know when to kind of use guys, and burning Josh Staum on the night before with a 4-run lead, knowing you're going into Sunday with a game that you really want to win and split the series with,
probably not the best idea. Going with Wade Davis in that situation, when you did have Jake Brents, who is a big strikeout pitcher, available, that's probably not the best situation. I'd like to see, Wade Davis at this point in his career probably needs to be protected. He needs to throw kind of low leverage innings, kind of what they're doing with Greg Holland, kind of what they did with Irvin Santana for a while, although I think they're starting to trust him more now. And the problem is they have 3 guys like that you kind of have to protect and throw out there when it's low leverage situations, which doesn't leave too many guys for the high leverage situations. And so that kind of leaves Matheny in the predicament he was in on Sunday. So they're either going to have to build some more depth, which, hopefully they get Jesse Hahn and Kyle Zimmer back, and those are some guys you can trust in that bullpen, because you just can't throw Scott Barlow and Josh Staumont out every single game. Wade Davis is going to have to pitch at some point. Probably, he should be pitching those 4-run, with those 4-run leads like Staumont was doing. But yeah, that's something. Matheny, I think, has handled the bullpen pretty well for the most part, but I think this weekend was probably a big strike against him in terms of knowing how to manage your bullpen and their load management.
Yeah. So with Matheny specifically, he was the choices made there were interesting, and then also post-game Matheny yesterday was probably the most interesting post-game Matheny that I've seen. Maybe in his time as the Royals manager. He went in pretty heavy on the replay process and on accountability and everything, and I'll editorialize on my end, and then you can tell me where you're at. I agreed with pretty much everything that he was saying, except I thought it was a very weird moment to bring all that out, because I don't feel like I would be willing to bet any money on if that tag landed or not on Sunday. So I think his points were all valid. Maybe they ended up having an angle we didn't have. I don't know. But from what I saw, I feel like it was at least very much in contention as to if Cam Gallagher landed that tag or not. But what did you think of ultimately that play at the plate, the review process, and then what Matheny had to say after the fact?
No, 100%. I agree that I think he made a lot of good points. And I think some of the emotion, some of the fire there was the frustration of having that losing streak, and then you have a chance to salvage this road trip with a split with the White Sox, and they go out and kind of lose in heartbreaking fashion. So I kind of get the emotion out of a guy that isn't, frankly, not been very emotional at all, which, I think that's a good thing. A lot of people may disagree. As far as the play itself, I mean, in real time, I thought he was safe. Mm-hmm. And then the first replay where they kind of show Gallagher beating him to the plate, I'm like, okay, he's out. But then they show another replay, and you're like, and then slow it down, and you're like, ooh, he beat him there, but I'm not sure he tagged him. And there just wasn't a real conclusive replay that showed he tagged him. Now, if the reason they called him safe, I think, is because the umpire, Edwin Moscoso, called him safe. Mm-hmm. And then there was no clear evidence to overturn it. But if you ask me, okay, Max, and you don't have a call to go on, just you see the play for the first time, throw down an instant replay, was he out or safe? I'd say like 60% he was out. Like, it looks like, I don't know that he tagged him, but he probably did. I mean, his glove kind of looks like it's brushing the back of his jersey, but you don't know if there's a gap there or not. And I'm not going to presume a gap unless there's evidence that there's a gap. So that's kind of my take on it. But I understand Mike Matheny's point. There isn't any accountability. It's like these replay reviews go to a shadowy figure in New York, and some guy makes the call, and we never hear why they made the call. Like in the NFL, they're very clear. They have the guy mic'd up. He says, upon further review, the guy didn't have his arms underneath the ball. It hit the ground. Therefore, it's not a catch. First down or fourth down, whatever. Baseball, they don't do that. They're just like, yep, call stands. We'll leave it to you guys to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
And they've gotten a little bit better about giving the name of the replay official, the review official, and maybe some explanation, but that's kind of up. That's kind of up at their whims, or the media has to request that. So it's not the most transparent process in the world, and so I get his frustrations. I think the process definitely is flawed and could use some tweaks to it. Whether or not I'm 100% certain that Cam Gallagher made that tag, I'm certainly not as certain as Mike Matheny seemed to be. He was just dead certain that Abreu was out, and God bless him, I'm sure he's sticking up for his team, but I am not that certain. But if I had a gun to my head, what safer out, I would say he was out.
I agree with all of that. Again, with it being sort of a coin toss on what actually happened there. The one element of that I think is maybe most interesting is that maybe every sport, but it seems like at least in most sports, either as a part of the rule or as the rule of thumb, part of the equation is clear and obvious evidence to overturn. And I think that's a relatively reasonable thing to continue to keep in place. But it also looks absolutely terrible when it seems relatively evident that every umpiring crew would like to just have their calls confirmed so it doesn't throw them under the bus or whatever. And also, that's such a terrible insecurity to take into a sports evaluation process like that. Like, to say, well, boy, I think he was out, or I think he was safe, or I think he got to first before the ball did, or whatever, but they said on the field this thing, and I really don't want to give, I don't want to make the umpire look bad. Umps who get calls wrong already look terrible. Like, we all see it at home immediately. Like, I don't know if I completely understand the logic there, but it does seem like there's maybe at least a little bit of smoke to that.
Yeah, and I kind of see it like our court process. Like, you can appeal a decision to a higher court, but judges don't like overturning other judges. Like, unless it's like a horribly wrong decision at the trial court level, the appeals court's not going to overturn it. And I think umpires are the same way. Unless it's just like an egregiously bad decision, they're not going to overrule their fellow colleague. And so I think I think you're right. That is a problem when you're basing the first, like the deference of the default of the decision is based on an umpire who's making the decision in real time, where he's got to make a decision in 10, 15 seconds, less than that probably, 5 seconds. He's got to only use the one angle he's got from wherever vantage point he's at, and he's got to watch it in real time without slow down video. And that's going to be our default. That's what we're going to base our decision off that, instead of the decision of someone else who can take their time and make a measured decision, look at all angles of a play, look at it in slow motion, and it just why do we defer to the worst possible vantage point when we make these calls? So I think that is something that's going to have to be reviewed. And I know every sport defers to the on-field referee, and I think it's like what you say, they don't want to make these referees look bad. But, like basketball, I see the referees huddle together, and it's the on-site referees who make the replay decisions. It's not some, guy far away. And I think in a lot of those cases, they're just trying to get the call right, because ultimately they're judging on whether that call is right or not, and they don't have to worry about overturning someone else. And so I wonder if maybe it would be better if these umpires had either someone designated as the crew chief, or maybe they just have a fifth member of the crew who's the designated replay guy, and he's helping them, and they're working together to make the call right. Because it's not about like, we got you, bad umpire, you got the call wrong. We just want to get the play right. We want Edwin Moscoso to get the play right, not to say he's a bad umpire. So hopefully this is something, there's been a spate of really questionable umpiring calls already in this young season. So hopefully that's something that gets kind of a review this offseason, because it just seems like it's an epidemic in baseball right now.
I would like to have the job that is based on shaming umpires. I think if I got to just get a PA microphone connection, at the stadium, I'm just going to watch the game just streaming. And if I can see before the next pitch or whatever happens, if I can see what actually happened in the replay, I just want to be able to hit a button that says, actually, he was out at third, you big dummy, you're a bad umpire. And then he's out at third, my rule rules, and that overturns it, and then the game moves on. I don't think that's too much to ask, and I feel like it would really revolutionize the sport.
So if you're going to follow around bad umpires, you're just going to be Angel Hernandez's stalker.
Yeah, I'm also going to just carry his bags. I'm going to take his laundry or his luggage into the hotel, and just at that point, I'm going to be there anyway. I may as well give him a little extra help. Max, thank you very much for joining us here tonight. Sorry for the way you were introduced and then interrupted by the absolute piercing sound of a fictional bat crack. I'll read a few Twitch comments here briefly, just 3 in a row. I literally jumped. New user. I thought the tire I was working on blew. New user. Thought my phone speaker popped. So good work, Beards. Some of your finest work and some of your absolute clunkiest forms. And thank you, Max, for being a professional and also an excellent conversation, regardless of the fact that this show is playing defense against you.
Hey, no problem. Those voices make mine sound better, so I appreciate it.
Max Rieper of Royals Review. You can follow him on Twitter at Max Rieper. You can check out Royals Review, royalsreview.com, at Royals Review on Twitter there as well. I think Iced Pyro, I thought the tire I was working on blew. I think that's by far the most sort of disconcerting one of all of those. Because your speaker popping, that doesn't sound good. Being startled, that happened here. Rudy took his threw his headphones off.
Yeah, my headphones were already turned up, probably a bit too loud.
Yeah,
so
I can kick that down one little notch over here.
Blasted my ears.
But like we're used to in here hearing an occasional bad like static pop or whatever. I just now felt and heard my jaw pop really loudly in a way that I hate. And I've always wondered if that ever comes through outside of my face, you know? And I no one's ever complained about it, so I'm guessing probably not. But it's really unpleasant.
I hiked the volume up on the back crack on all of my Frankenstein creations. And then when I turned it up to what I would normally do on the normal version and didn't factor in the fact that I had cranked the volume on that. So that was my bad. That was my fault.
I'm sorry, officer. I put the guns in the bullet and I shot the gun. I didn't even think about the fact that there was a bullet in the gun that I put there.
I'm happy he knows it was his fault.
As opposed to it being on one of us.
You know what? That was my bad. I'll
you know
take
what?
that
Hey,
one.
Rudy, could you tell Pierce to not do that again? It's really your fault. Also, thanks to this happened before the bat crack, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he never came back again. But thanks to Lenexa for the Prime subscription on the Twitch channel. The Twitch chat, if you're not a part of it, not Facebook.com. That would not be where Twitch is at. We stream the show in a variety of places, including at Facebook.com/SportsRadio810, YouTube.com/810WHB, and Twitch.tv/SportsRadio810. Well, the Twitch chat community has been great. And also, if you're an Amazon Prime user, you can use you get a free Prime subscription every month.
Yep,
and you can give it to us.
You do.
You can give it won't cost you a ding dang thing. You can create
But
a
it helps
Twitch
us.
account, link it up. It won't cost you a thing, but it will kick a little bit of money into the 810 Twitch account, which is nice for everybody.
Well, kickback.
And occasionally you'll want to replace your kickback with a bat back. And throw a bat back through the digital experience and hopefully come out of the other side and conk beards right in the head. I don't have a baseball bat anywhere near me, but I could get us an oar.
Or what?
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
What kind of producer do you think I am?
A lazy one.
That's fair.
I
just marked that. I don't know when I'll cut it.
I mean,
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
you know it's got to be a pretty powerful thing whenever I go out of my way to say, hey, go find yourself a baseball highlight that just got made. Earlier, a dude got hit in the face with the baseball. Don't watch that one. That one's not fun.
That's wild.
What is fun is every single thing that Shohei Ohtani does on a baseball field.
Yep.
So you're going to see Shohei Ohtani hit a home run. Now, you've seen that before.
13 of them. Leads baseball in home runs.
It's a lot of home runs for a guy that's also an excellent pitcher.
2.10 ERA this year.
Both incredibly. He would be an all-star caliber pitcher or an all-star caliber position player.
Mm-hmm.
He is both. It's incredible. But the specific highlight that just came down the Twitter sphere here is him taking a pitch that comes in literally right now. If you pause it at the beginning, where the catcher is crouched. Okay, I'm going to paint this picture for you. The catcher is crouched. His eye line is a little bit above the strike zone, and then there's the rest of his head above that. This pitch comes in at a spot where the catcher has to pop up a little bit, and the ball, if he did not move, would have grazed the top of his helmet. This ball is a full foot over the, like a full foot high. It is a full foot above the zone, and Ohtani crushes it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a home run deep into right center field. No, Beards. I said right center field. It's a different thing. If it was a straightaway home run, they would have thought about it. But you're in center field timeout for at least the rest of the show.
That's fine.
It's just... It was was it Mercedes who had the hit against the Royals yesterday? Neither of you guys were watching. I think it was Mercedes.
You mean Mercedes?
That
Probably. That dude's hitting everything.
Well, Max just mentioned this. Yeah, Beard's a car. You remember Mercedes, I think, was the one that he had this sort of little short-handed swing that his hands were tucked right in, and it was almost like eye level. It was crazy. Yeah. And he just sort of, it was like he was using an oar to hit the ball. Go ahead, Beards.
Or what?
Thank you. So, it drops in. I think that was I think that came in Wade Davis's unfortunate final inning there, which again wasn't really a terrible pitch. It was just a crazy hit. Ohtani does that, but still fully turns on it. It just doesn't make any damn sense. It does not make any sense. So I am positing that the Pentagon at this point has confirmed that UFOs exist because we're all very close to discovering that Shohei Ohtani is a full-on alien. Because I have no other explanation for this. No one in baseball, no one in modern baseball is doing the stuff that Shohei Ohtani is doing right now. Like Mike Trout is the best player in baseball and has been for a little bit. We've seen some incredible pitchers in modern baseball. But Shohei Ohtani is doing both of these things that we've all just sort of agreed are so difficult that even the absolute best in the world should only focus on one of the two things. It's incredible.
Yeah. The other night he was, I guess it's probably been about a week ago. It might have actually even just been his last starter or two. He throws 7 innings and then just trots out to right field when he was done pitching.
It's awesome, man.
And like
that's also so cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Like it's kind of funny because that shouldn't seem like that big of a deal, but also like it's like the coolest thing, right?
Yeah.
Just like getting up the mound and just trotting out to right field to continue playing baseball because you just don't see it.
And it's very.
He changed a video game. The show did not know what to do with him last year. You could only have him as a pitcher or as a hitter, and now they've like completely changed their game to where guys can do both because like you had to because what he's doing is remarkable.
The Shohei Ohtani.
I think we got a new nickname for the guy.
I can't believe that no one's calling him the Shotei.
If you go to
Shohei, added a T for no reason.
June Lee's Twitter at June Lee JOONLEE. He's got essentially the still.
Yeah, it's incredible.
The screenshot of where the ball's at, like where he makes contact, and it is incredibly high up in the air.
The thing that I thought was happening when the bat cracked in center field just happened in the studio just now, where the audio cut out and there's a little high-pitched little ping kind of thing that we hear.
Oh, I didn't even hear it that time.
I don't know if it shows up in the recordings or if that's just an in-studio thing. But
I've heard it before, but not that time.
It's just like center field was like hearing a gunshot on the 4th of July, where you're kind of conditioned to expect some popping noises, but that was still much more violent.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just the other thing about, to your point of basically hand the manager the ball and start jogging out to right field, is it's I was gonna say it's very high school, but that doesn't even give it enough credit. Like, it's very just sort of intramural baseball, playing baseball with your friends, maybe like early kid pitch sort of stuff, machine pitch baseball, where you're just kind of all shuffling around. Like, all right, this it's the 4th inning, which means that Jeremy, you're at third base. Like, but Jeremy shouldn't play third base. We put him in right field so he doesn't get exposed as being an absolute baseball fraud. Like, this is the inning that Jeremy plays, and he's also going to hit. We're going to let Jeremy hit. Why are we letting Jeremy hit? He's got to hit. His parents paid for him to be here.
He has to hit. That's the rule.
And Ohtani's just kind of, you know what else it is? And this is so instructive of what I think is cool about sports. I've talked about a couple of these franchises a lot of times. I love NFL Street. I loved backyard sports games. Like the video game, Humongous Entertainment video game franchise.
Pablo for the win, man.
They
Pablo
were Humongous
Sanchez.
Entertainment, right?
I believe so.
I'm wondering if because that's Humongous Entertainment is like Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish.
I think they were all the same.
I'm wondering if Spy Fox, all of those I think are Humongous.
They were developed Backyard Baseball series of baseball video games for children, which was developed by Humongous Entertainment and published by Atari.
Okay, so that
Humongous
studio,
Entertainment, man, back in the day was just kicking out.
Putt, Freddy Fish, Spy Fox, Pajama Sam. Are you kidding me? And the backyard sports games.
Whatever happened to Humongous?
Their games are on Steam now,
and some of them are on the App Store.
Oh man,
both Google Play and the Apple App Store. Yeah.
But
I wonder what they're doing now.
I loved all of those games, and on those games, you play both sides of the ball. Your pitchers are gonna have to hit, so you want to have a pitcher that can do both. Sometimes your pitcher gets tired, you got to put Randy Johnson in right field, and then bring in somebody else. You got to carry two pitchers. Who's to say? Also, on NFL Network right now, the David Tyree catch just happened a little bit ago, and I don't think I remember that all happened with the Giants down 4, under 2 minutes.
Yep.
That whole drive started at about the 2-minute warning, down 4, backed up into their own territory. I remember just absolutely losing my mind watching this game, but I don't think I remember, and I've obviously seen that highlight 1,000 times, but I think the game situation was kind of lost on me. And it's just incredible play after incredible play in a game that, as of this point, is 14-10. Not exactly an offensive barn burner with Tom Brady and Eli Manning in a game that's remembered for his incredible offensive performances. And then there's Plaxico, touchdown, unbelievable.
That was football back in the day.
So this game is bonkers. What a fun Super Bowl.
This tweet just came across my tweet deck because we were speaking of your mean Mercedes. He hit a home run, a 3-0 count off Williams Astudillo, 47-mile-per-hour pitch. I assume this is a position player, but still. 47.
It's not very fast.
You know how slow.
They're up 16-4, so it was probably, you're right, it was probably a position player.
I assume position player, but even then, right, like position players, I feel like still are getting to the 60s and 70s.
Astudillo was the pitcher, yes?
Yeah, Williams.
He's a catcher. Oh, boy! He's a chunky catcher, too.
Man, I want a catcher with an arm. 47.
His official headshot has 2 full chins.
Oh, boy.
He is built like a catcher. I'd like to see him pitch, please.
Also, Mercedes just being like 3-0 count in a big league. Just 100%. Like, hey, I've been sitting in the minors for the last decade. I'm here to hit baseballs.
Dallas Keuchel came out in that game and gave up 7 hits in 7 innings, 3 earned runs, and was probably like, that's not a great Dallas Keuchel outing. He left that game at, I believe, 14-3 was his excellent outing, up by nearly a dozen runs.
Go look at June Lee's most recent tweet again.
Is it about the pitches that
on
Ohtani's
his last
hit?
two, his
Yeah,
most
it's
recent
crazy.
home runs?
Yeah,
like
one of them is a full foot above the zone. The other one is is in the bottom right corner.
It is a swing that you make to slap a single down the third base line.
I can describe this swing in 2 words flawlessly. Go ahead.
Are we on the same page?
Just say it.
Nicky Lopez?
No.
Oh.
Vladimir Guerrero.
Oh, I thought
You
so.
can't make that Nicky Lopez.
No, because
you
what-
can't do that to that Nicky
No, no, no.
Lopez. It's not fair.
No, because that's a Nicky Lopez swing that again goes down the left field line for a single. That's a Nicky Lopez swing all the way.
He is
and
arched his back in a Vladimir Guerrero-esque formation.
He's hit a home run. I mean, yeah, no, Vlad's a great is like again as far as like home run, like if you're talking about yes for a power hitter, 100%.
I just really thought that we were on the same page,
I know,
and then you
yeah.
said Nicky Lopez, and I wanted to
'Cause I
say
was-
Vladimir Guerrero.
And
It
I was
just not the same.
basically going off like when I said that was a swing that you used to hit a ball down the left, down the third base line for a single.
Kevin Millar was the guy that got hit by that pitch. Chaotic Warrior says, if you have a weak stomach, don't watch or listen to that clip. I watched it, and it was not fun, but it was like, I've seen worse sports injuries. I have not heard it.
Yeah, me neither.
And that one I might let go. I might not hear that one.
I'm good.
Because his nose is broken.
Yeah.
Just by the amount of blood that was coming. I don't know what else it could have been other than a baseball to the nose.
If his nose isn't broken, then he's got this. His nose is made of steel.
I mean, it could have hit him in the jaw, but a jaw doesn't bleed like that.
Yeah, not like that.
Why do I feel like I naturally know that to be true? 'Cause I think I'm right.
No, yeah, you're definitely right. Because I mean, like we've all had bloody noses. We've
Yeah,
all
it's
get
just-
popped in the face where you bled a lot.
Yeah.
Like your chin doesn't gush open like that. I mean, like I guess, and like 'cause especially where you see.
I've been
where
hitting
you
a chin with a
see-
baseball, but
That's
I
true,
think you're
but
probably right.
where you see the blood dripping from, like it's too high up his face to be from his mouth. Like
I think his nose is in extremely bad shape, if I had to guess. Let's take a break. Whenever we come back, Beards is out of timeout, and as long as there's no center field, and we'll talk about the NBA play-in games, which you'll be able to hear right here on Sports Radio 810. More on that in a minute.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already.
You like a company that really stands behind its product? Well, listen to what Diamonds Direct does. Let's say you buy a diamond today for $6,000, but later on you want to trade up to a larger diamond or maybe a different shape. Diamonds Direct will give you $6,600 towards the new diamond. That's a guaranteed 10% appreciation. Let me say it again. You paid $6,000 originally, but Diamonds Direct pays you $6,600 for that same diamond when you upgrade. 10% more for the same diamond. It's Diamonds Direct's 110% upgrade guarantee, and it applies to diamond pendants and diamond stud earrings as well. You get the extra 10% on a $3,000 diamond or a $30,000 diamond. Doesn't matter. No strings attached either. You can get the 110% trade-up value regardless of the cost of the new diamond. And you can upgrade as many times as you like. Now that's peace of mind. And that's a company that believes in its product. Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion. At 119th and Row.
Spectrum Brands, the leading supplier of hardware and home improvement, is looking for workers at their local warehouse in Edgerton, Kansas, right off I-35. You'll receive day one benefits, 12 paid holidays, and become part of a culture that we love, made up of the right people, a diverse group of people with varied backgrounds. Spectrum Brands is hiring for warehouse workers $16 per hour and equipment operators $17 per hour. Must have 6 months recent reach truck or order picker experience to be an equipment operator. Apply today at spectrumbrands.com/careers. That's spectrumbrands.com/careers. Turn your job into a career with Spectrum Brands.
Another season of frigid temperatures is finally behind us. But with the good comes some bad, because another winter in the books means another year of wear and tear on your roof. Greg Gurley here. Wouldn't it be nice to sleep well knowing you can trust the roof over your head? You can with the company I trust, Buck Roofing. Buck Roofing has fixed the roof over my mom's head and thousands of KC homeowners and commercial buildings. Jayhawks, Wildcats, and Tigers all agree that Buck Roofing is simply the best in Kansas City. Ron and his team are experts in residential, commercial roofing, and they can do your gutters too. Don't just take my word for it. Check their rating with Angie's List and the Better Business Bureau. Buck Roofing will do only the work that needs to be done, and you can trust that you are getting a fair bid. Put this number in your phone now, 913-384-2680. That's 913-384-2680, or online at ourbuckroofing.com. And sleep well knowing Buck Roofing fixed the roof over your head.
You're into your shows, right? Well, then listen up. With Xfinity X1, you get live TV, sports, and streaming apps all in one place. Check it out. Show me Team USA. It's easy to find what you want, from Disney Plus to Netflix to live sports. You can even watch your DVR from anywhere. You go, Allison Felix! So go ahead. Get really into your shows with Xfinity X1. It's a way better way to watch.
Restrictions apply. Requires digital starter TV or equivalent or above with eligible X1 box and Xfinity Internet. Subscriptions required to access streaming services.
You're still running your business on QuickBooks? QuickBooks? More like quicksand. The bigger your company grows, the faster you sync with outdated software that just can't keep up. You don't have time to spend dealing with manual processes, multiple systems, delays, and scrambling to get the numbers you need. It's time to get on solid ground. NetSuite by Oracle, the scalable solution to run all of your key back office operations, no matter how big your company grows. NetSuite gives you visibility and control over your financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more. Everything you need to grow all in one place. NetSuite helps you automate your key business processes and close your books in a fraction of the time. Think days, not weeks. In fact, 93% of surveyed organizations increased their visibility and control over their business since making the switch from QuickBooks to NetSuite. Right now, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program only for those ready to graduate from QuickBooks. Head to netsuite.com/radar. That's special financing for you graduates at netsuite.com/radar.
Family Leisure is having our Factory Direct sale. Looking forward to spring for patio furniture or a new hot tub? Family Leisure has factory incentives going on now. Do you want to start a new career? Family Leisure is growing and wants you to join our championship family. If you want to be the best, come join the best at Family Leisure, where family and fun come together. Now hiring for sales, service, warehouse, Bobcat operators, and more. Family Leisure, K10 and Ridgeview in Olathe.
Awesome! You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
I think they... Boring you, Beards?
Sorry. I had a yawn.
Yeah, we heard.
You can. There's a little off button.
No.
There's
not a yawn button. There's a cough button, but there's not a yawn button.
There's an off button
on your mic.
With Joshua Brisco.
Anyway, so Doug Marone, you're supposed to yawn again, Beards. Now we go live to Beards for his NBA season preview. Beards, go.
Timberwolves might not make the playoffs this year, guys.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
One more Patriots-Giants Super Bowl thing real quick. I don't remember the name Corey Webster terribly well. He was in the league for a long time.
LSU.
But he is not the David Tyree of this game, and he broke up one very good and one still pretty okay Hail Mary attempt, sort of. Not quite a Hail Mary, but a deep route to Randy Moss. And if Randy Moss catches that first one, or if Webster trips, this game at least goes into overtime. And it's just incredible how many of those little plays. It's like Jimmy Garoppolo missing his deep shot in the Super Bowl. Totally changes history. Just kind of fun. All right, Beards, go ahead, grab the shot clock. Get it ready. 24 seconds. Do you have your shot clock?
Yeah.
24 seconds of NBA play-in tournament analysis. Go.
Anyone specific, or are we just doing all of it?
All you, baby.
Okay, I don't expect the Pacers to do much, even though they're the better team than the Hornets. I'll take them. Boston's not beating Washington, I'm sorry to say. Probably not. Even though Bradley Beal's not 100% healthy. Grizzlies over Spurs, and then it probably should be Lakers beat the Warriors. But who knows?
You can hear Indiana, Charlotte, and Boston, Washington tomorrow on ESPN Kansas City, 1510 AM, 94.5 FM. And we will lead in to Lakers and Golden State on Wednesday. We'll have a quick hour of Almost Entirely Sports there before I find out who the Phoenix Suns are going to obliterate in the first round of the playoffs. No AES tomorrow. I got baseball tonight live from the Monarchs. I'll talk to you then at 6 o'clock. AES will be back on Wednesday. Until then, bye, Mom.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.